This is Empty the Bench with Tom Albano.
Had Jimmy Garoppolo gone to the backup role, had Trey Lance actually worked out and Jimmy Garoppolo had gone to the backup role this season, maybe he could have been available, but I see there's a potential that a quarterback desperate team will probably try to go for him.
Nick Morgasen.
If I'm Herbert, I pay very close attention to next season. And this is going to say, you're going to say this is one of my crazy takes so far for this year. But I say Herbert watches and pays attention next year. And if this crap happens again with Staley, I'm demanding a trade out of Los Angeles.
Empty the Bench starts now.
Yeah, the Broncos are your zonk this year. If you lost to the Broncos this year, that's on you as a football team. All right. I know, Johnny. I made a game show reference to start this off.
So that's why you invited me on here today.
Oh, my God. Excuse me. Welcome to Empty the Bench, episode 169. Obviously, we complete the twist. No, it's not an April Fool's joke, I promise. It's too early for that. Johnny Montalbano, Nick Morgasen. As you know, Tom was overdoing Game On this week. So we decided to complete the total turn. Make sure you follow the show on. Oh, go ahead.
So that means that next week we should have you and Hank here, and Tom should be with me on Game On, and then it will really be complete.
That would complete a full twist. Make sure you follow the show on social media at ETB Sports, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Make sure you follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/ETB Network. I'm almost out of breath. One more. Our new website as well, etbpodcast.com, where all the shows have their own tabs and where you can find all the shows. And you can find the new Empty the Bench blog for sports and entertainment and pop culture. Okay, now that all the promos out of the way. We have a lot to get into this week. A lot. And Johnny knows this from behind the scenes. This show changes in the snap of a finger.
Absolutely, yes. We were prepping this show earlier in the week, and as we get ready to do the show now, it has changed yet again. But you know what? That's media, that's sports, that's like whatever business field you're in 2023 as it is. And when I joined you guys, it was just about a year ago when I joined you, and every time with Game On, we know that we plan something out, and then boom, something happens that we have to throw everything out or change things around. So it's a good problem to have, though.
Well, there's plenty of content. Like Johnny and I already said, this is probably going to be a 2-hour show already. Again, this show seems to love that 2-hour mark. But a lot to get into this week. MLB Hall of Fame, as we're recording this, just dropped. Who got into the Hall of Fame or who didn't get into the Hall of Fame. We will break that down for you in a few minutes. Also, not one, but two unfortunate domestic violence situations. I was telling Johnny before we came on here, how rare is it that you get two different leagues and two different domestic violence situations in the same day?
Yeah, very, very, very strange all the way around. Yeah, for sure.
Also, we'll recap the divisional round, which had some shockers in there, which we were not expecting. Also, we'll break down some other drama, including some Lamar Jackson contract talk, which apparently there was a number thrown out there for guaranteed money. Also, MLB trade news as well between the Twins and the Marlins. Not that I really care what the Marlins do anymore because they trade for a star and then they trade him in the next 2 or 3 years and they get him. Also, WNBA news. I know that's a rare term you don't hear on a sports show every day. A different type of investigation going on with pregnancy. This is not the first time I've heard this type of story. I've actually heard this in the world of soccer with female soccer players, that this has been an issue. And then we'll break down both championship games. We'll preview them. And and that'll be it. So we got a lot to get into. So right off the bat, we will talk about the Hall of Fame. So as I said, as we're taping this on Tuesday for Wednesday, the Hall of Fame news just broke. Scott Rolen got in on the regular ballot, and Fred McGriff got in on the veterans ballot. A lot to discuss here. I have the numbers. You and I both have the numbers. We're looking at them. Scott Rolen got in at 76.3%, which for most people who don't know, you need 75% or more to get into the Hall of Fame. So I'm not surprised. Scott Rolen was a really good player.
Yeah, I look at this ballot, Nick, and this to me, I think this was the right decision what they made in terms, and what I mean by that is who got in and the number of people that got in, because we were looking at this before we started, and I remember talking about this before they released the results, and Scott Rolen had been a guy that had been trending in the right direction, and you look at his career, his numbers are, his resume is fantastic. 7-time All-Star, 8-time Gold Glove Award winner at third base in a 17-year career in the major leagues. And again, he was trending in the right direction. And there are some guys that, and I know we'll talk about this, but there are some guys also that when you look at it, are also going in the right direction. But Rolen, in his 6th year on the ballot, his career number is 281 career average, 1,287 runs batted in, 1,211 runs, an on-base and slugging percentage of .854 combined with 4 teams. And he had 2,000 plus hits, 517 doubles, 43 triples, 316 home runs. So, I mean, the numbers were there, but I think what also helps too was the All-Star nods, the 8 Gold Gloves. His numbers, I mean, he was, as I said, he was trending in the right direction, and I think they made the right call here. And if you look at it, though, he got in by 5 votes. So it was definitely a close one. And we saw that with some other guys that did come close, but yeah, congratulations to Scott Rolen. And yes, Fred McGriff got in late last year on the Contemporary Baseball Era Players Committee.
Right.
Back in San Diego.
I mean, the way I look at the Hall of Fame ballot, and I've had a lot of problems with the way the Hall of Fame voting has gone over the last couple of years. One, because, and I'm sure you and I have some similarities to what I'm about to say, which the Hall of Fame voters are a bunch of crotchety old men who, unfortunately, they hold the keys to these guys getting into the Hall of Fame. I don't think that's 100% fair. Some of these guys are going to do everything in their power to keep the PED guys out of the Hall of Fame. Now, excuse me, that we talked about David Ortiz, you and I, and I'm sure we talked about when he got in the Hall of Fame. We're talking about it now. Why is he allowed to get into the Hall of Fame, but everyone is going to do everything in their power to keep A-Rod and Bonds and Clemens and Sosa and so on and so forth out of the Hall of Fame? So, and I said to Johnny, look, David Ortiz is a media-friendly guy. That's why he got in. And when you're with Fox, who's a big partner of Major League Baseball, you have eyeballs on you. And when you do the Hall of Fame, do the postseason broadcasts, there are eyeballs on you. Everyone's watching you. Now, I don't know what that has to do with the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame has to do with the career on the field, not off the field. And he was a cheater. He was on the PED list. For most people who don't remember, in 2003, when that list, I forgot what year it was, accidentally got exposed. I think it was in the early 2010s, that list from 2003 got exposed. And that was the whole, I think, part of the Mitchell report and all that stuff. His name was on the list for a positive PED test. So he should be treated the same way as A-Rod, Bonds, Sosa, Clemens, and so on and so forth are being treated.
Yeah, I remember being on the air that the day that announcement was made as well. And yeah, see, the thing I had with that was when the first person that was linked to steroid use was going to get into the Hall of Fame, it was going to start a whole separate, argument about
Can of worms.
Yeah, whole can of worms, exactly. And I guess what the thing is also, though, and you had said it when they were announcing it on Tuesday on MLB Network about the characteristics of getting to the Hall of Fame and what the writers base it on. Character is a thing, and you know what? That's why Ortiz got in. Now, I don't agree with that. I think his numbers are Hall of Fame worthy. Look, we're both Yankee fans. We've seen what he's done to us in his career, and there's no question he's one of the more clutch players that I've ever seen in my lifetime. But I mean, again, if we're going to talk about steroids use, if he's going to get in, then why isn't everybody else then linked to steroid use going to get in then?
Or at least, why are they not being treated the same way?
Yeah, well, we all know A-Rod is not liked by the media.
Well,
we know
A-Rod did it to himself. A-Rod did everything to himself. When the whole PED allegations with A-Rod were out, he tried to lie about it first and get mad at everybody, and he was going to sue Major League Baseball, which he almost did, and that would have been the end of him completely doing anything, either with the properties of ESPN or Fox, because for most people who don't know, he's a very rare occurrence when it comes to the media because he does work for both ESPN and Fox.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, that started a whole thing last year with Ortiz getting in, and
by the way, another big thing that people don't like to point out, and I'm going to point it out because most people don't bring it up. The Hall of Fame is not the Hall of Morality. Okay, like it's not the Hall of Fame of morality. If you go all the way back to Babe Ruth, or you go back to Lou Gehrig, or you go back to some of these guys, DiMaggio, who was dating Marilyn Manson, or I'm just saying, or not Marilyn Manson, Marilyn Monroe. Oh my God,
Monroe.
That's what I meant to say. Yeah. I'm getting my errors mixed up. Anyway, I'm just saying these people were not moral. They weren't thinking about what's going on off the field. They were mean, nasty baseball players.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't need to say this, but times have definitely changed. That's for sure.
I mean,
but
like I said,
but character's a big thing, though, because you know what I mean. We'll bring his name up too. Kurt Schilling. I mean, one of the big reasons why Schilling's not in the Hall of Fame is his character. And
well, one thing I will say, and again, removing biases aside, him being Red Sox and us being Yankee fans.
Oh yeah,
but Kurt, I don't know what his problem is. I think he's got a screw loose somewhere inside of his head. I don't know what it is, but Kurt let politics cloud his judgment big time. And I'm not talking about sport, like the politics of sports. I'm talking about like real politics. He let cloud his mind. And there was a lot of, he's not exactly the best businessman by any stretch either. I think he bankrupted a production company, a video game company that he had at one point also. So Kurt's got a lot of skeletons in the closet that, because he thinks he's like a perfect individual who is a American and could do what he wants and be involved in politics. Well, and then there was the whole incident. I'm sure Johnny remember this well. Remember he tried to refuse being accepted into the Hall of Fame because I think he got the votes.
Well, I remember. I think it was he didn't want to even be on the ballot for the, I think his final year, and
right.
The writers said no.
Well, it wasn't just the writers; it was the chairman who came out and said, "Look, you're not going to affect the way our processes are done. You're staying on the ballot." But I guarantee you, once that happened, they pretty much said, "All right, he doesn't want it. We'll just whatever." But Kurt, I have a problem with Kurt, not on the field. Kurt was probably one of the better pitchers of all time that we saw growing up. Him and Randy Johnson in Arizona was probably was the biggest threat to the Yankees of all time.
Oh yeah, that 2001 World Series I mean, that 1-2 punch in the 0-1 World Series was something that I've never seen before. And really, that after that World Series changed the Yankees forever. Really, if you think about it,
I mean,
for at least like 15 years or so, the Yankees went in an entirely different direction of the way they operated their team.
Unfortunately, they didn't lose it on pitching. They unfortunately lost it on a 100-foot blooper over the shortstop's head on a broken bat from Luis Gonzalez. But
yeah,
if I remember correctly, I think Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling were co-MVPs, I think, of that World Series.
That's right, yeah.
So, I don't know. There's morals and there's differences in the Hall of Fame. Anyone who says that everyone going to the Hall of Fame is a perfect person, that's bullcrap. Everyone knows it.
Yeah. But, I mean, the Baseball Hall of Fame is also different from the other sports because when you look at the other sports, they have a set number of people that they want to get in every year. Baseball, you have to have a set percentage, and that's at 75%.
Which makes no sense, by the way.
Well, remember, I mean, this is the Hall of Fame we're talking about here, and it should be difficult to get in. But with baseball, I mean, it's definitely a hard thing because, we can't get 75% of the people in the world to agree on anything. But just focusing on this year, there are a couple of other things I want to take from just the voting on Tuesday night. So Rolen got in by 5 votes. Todd Helton just missed by 11 votes. He got 72.2%. Billy Wagner 68.1. Andrew Jones 58.1. Wagner's another guy here too, Nick, that's worth discussing because like Rolen, he started out at a very low percentage. I think Rolen's first year
10%.
10.2%. Wagner's first year in 2016 was 10.5. Then in 2017 it was 10.2. But since then, he has 2 years of eligibility remaining. But in his 8th year, he's gone from 10.5 to 10.2 to 11.1 to 16.7 to 31.7 to 46.4 in 2021. And then in 2022, 51%. And then he took a huge jump this year with 68.1%. So to me, I think he's definitely trending in the right direction here with 2 years of eligibility remaining.
But it doesn't make sense. But it doesn't make sense because, and I brought this up, and maybe I'm sure we were going to talk about it anyway, but the whole thing, when you start at year one at a little over 10%, and now you're at 68%, like something doesn't, and the only two things that add up in my mind is one, the older writers retire and the new ones come in who are all in favor of everything. They don't care if there's steroids. They don't care if they cheated. They don't care anything. So they're putting people in. Now, like Scott Rolen, I've never heard any allegation of anything at all. So I just remember him as a hard playing baseball player that did everything. And I remember, I don't know if I think it was with the Cardinals where he had the shoulder injury that he was dealing with constantly. And like he had to keep getting cortisones, I think, while the Cardinals were in the middle of their playoff runs just so he could play.
Right.
But Billy Wagner, also one of the greatest closers of all time, in my opinion. It's not close. Another weird statistic I remember about Wagner, he was part of the Astros team no-hitter, right?
Yeah, in 2003, yes. He was.
Wasn't that against the Yankees?
It was, yeah. Yanks have been no-hit twice by the Astros on a combined no-hitter. And that one I remember quite well back in 2003 because I believe it was Roy Oswalt who started that game, and he left after an injury.
He got hurt.
Yeah, in the first inning, I think it was. And it was a 6-pitcher no-hitter. But, yeah, so Wagner's trending in the right direction. And, again, we talked about how Rolen went from 10-2 to where he is now. But, Wagner's trending in the right direction. And I think, and just going back, actually picking back of what you were saying. So, yeah, there are a couple of reasons why. So, number one, different writers get, their choice of voting. You get older ones retiring, newer ones coming in. And also, because when these other guys either get voted in or get taken off the ballot because they don't get the needed 5% or it's, 10 years plus of eligibility and they get taken off the ballot, that actually probably gives them a little bit of a boost too. So, after Ortiz gets in or other guys drop out for whatever reason,
yeah, but
it helps them too.
Yeah, but like you said, the one oddity, David Ortiz getting in on first ballot, that made no sense.
Yeah. Well, see, and speaking of that, so if we were going to talk about, though, new writers, A-Rod only got a just over a 1% bump from last year, this year. He went from 34.3 to 35.7.
First of all, I think A-Rod's on the blacklist. To be honest, I think he's done. Like he's done so much damage to the sport that I just don't think he comes back from it. To be honest, now I know he's in his technical infancy when it comes to being on the ballot. I think this was his second year on the ballot.
Yeah,
I don't. Maybe in the next 5 years, when most of the writers that were around during his era are gone, maybe his number will creep up. I don't think he hits 75% because the number has changed. By the way, it's no longer 15 years on the Hall of Fame ballot; it's now 10.
It's 10, right?
And then I think you have another 5 years on the veterans ballot.
Yes.
So I could see him getting to like 45, maybe 50%. I don't think he's going to get above that, to be honest.
Yeah, and what's also going to happen is you're going to have newcomers coming in. Like you've got several newcomers coming into the 2024 ballot, and I'm sure we're going to get to that in just a second. And if you don't have a big jump in those guys, that's something too. But besides that, I don't know if we talked about it, but Carlos Beltran, his first year, and he got
46.5%.
Now,
which is ridiculous, by the way.
Well, so Beltran, to me, as somebody who watched him very closely on the Mets for the years he was there, and then at the end towards the Yankees as well. But Beltran, to me, I believe is going to get in. But to me, he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's had some great years. We all remember him from the start with that unbelievable postseason in 2004 with the Astros. And then he signs with that 7-year deal with the Mets. His first year was rough, but he had a great 3-year stretch with the Mets from 2006 to 2008. And those 3 years as well, he did win the Gold Glove. So he's got Gold Glove award wins. He's got Silver Slugger wins. He's got the numbers to me that he can be a Hall of Famer, but he's not going to get in. He didn't get in first ballot, which I think is right. And I don't know if he's going to get in right away, but the number that's really surprised me was, and maybe it shouldn't be surprising, was 46.5%. I thought it was going to be a little bit closer, but you also wonder, does that cheating scandal with the Astros, how was that going to affect him? And that might have played a big role here, Nick. I mean, obviously, he was the one that took the biggest hit because nobody got punished from the Astros, but he ended up, what it looked like he was going to be the Met manager. The Mets, once they figured that all out, just had to back away from it.
There was something that bothered me with Beltran. Now, don't get me wrong. Beltran, and I said this to you before we started, Beltran was the original 5-tool player. He could do everything. He could hit for power. He could steal bases. He could play the outfield. He could make the throws. A lot of times when he wasn't in center, he could play right field. I mean, I'm not putting down the man's talent, but at the same time, we've heard a lot of rumors that behind the scenes, he's a little, I don't know, a dirty player, or he did things behind the scenes, or, I mean, you could also say the same thing about Alex Cora. Alex Cora shouldn't be absolved of any blame as well, because he did some stuff behind the scenes. I mean, heck, he got suspended, for a full year? Yep. And also, what's his name, who was the Tigers manager, got suspended for a season.
Oh, who was the manager for the
AJ Hinch.
AJ Hinch, yeah, he was the manager at the time there too. Yeah.
So it's not just Beltran who's at fault for all that garbage that went down. The two of them got in trouble also,
and should have been the entire organization. We don't want to go down that road again. We know about that.
I know, because I heard it from a certain somebody a million times that the Astros, whatever. By the way, if you're still crowing about a cheating scandal from 5 years ago, I feel sorry for you as a person. I get it. The Astros cheated. You and I both agree. The Astros are cheaters. But if you're crowing about it 5 or 6 years ago, you need to move on.
Well, I'll say this. As somebody who was one of those guys, I said I was not going to move on from it until every single player that was on that team was off the Astros organization. I think we're about 95% of the way there.
I know, but at the same time, like
there
are Yankee fans though who are going to hold a grudge forever against the Astros organization. What is that? That accomplishes nothing.
I understand the why, but I think also at the same time they might be direct. What they're also trying to tell you is that they're really throwing the grudge also at a certain commissioner that should also be bared a brunt of the responsibility too for not being gutsy enough and being a leader enough, and what should have been the punishment. That's exactly right. It's 2023, and we are still using that good old Rob Manfred banner. Absolutely.
First one of the year. Actually, wait a minute. No, it came out on Game On when I was doing it with Hank, so it's second time of the year.
Well, I'll tell you what, opening day is 2.5 months away, and I'm sure we'll be using that when we start seeing those larger bases and stuff. And banning of the shift, which is just absolute crap.
Well, and get ready for a longer spring training this year also.
Well, that's not really Manfred's fault. That's really more the Olympic Committee for the whole World Baseball Classic. I forget who I was talking about. I think it was either with you or Tom.
It was both of us. We were talking about it.
I think it might have been everybody. And I was saying that what's really sad about the World Baseball Classic is I think every country but the United States actually loves it, and we're the one country that can't stand it.
Well, because the Olympic Committee did a dumb thing where they won't let MLB players into the Olympic side, not the World Baseball Classic. But I'm not a fan of the World Baseball Classic either because you have to travel a million places if you want to see it.
Yeah. You know what the thing is? There's no perfect time to play it. You know, start of the season, I mean, in spring training, the guys aren't really ramped up enough, and then they come out of it, and then they got to ramp back down before they ramp back up. Middle of the season, you're not going to take players out during the season or have an extended break. And after the season, some guys are going to be shut down for the longest period of time before they have to ramp it back up again and then shut it down. There's no perfect time to play the WBC.
And I hate to say this also, but when you do something like this, what's the biggest thing players care about when they're getting ready for a season?
Well, health, and they want to...
There's a big R word that everyone gets into their what?
Rhythm.
Well, rhythm or routine.
Routine, yeah, rhythm, routine.
So when you put the World Baseball Classic... Go ahead.
Right, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I hate to say this. You know what's going to also happen, too? The only time we're going to talk about the World Baseball Classic, either probably on this show or on Game On, is going to be if there's a key player that gets injured in one of these and misses a significant amount of time.
Well, and we'll get back to the Hall of Fame in a second, but the one thing I will say is, ironically, a player who has been hurt a ton is this all-star in a certain organization, which their owner just said now they're not selling, Mike Trout, who has been hurt and can barely move, agreed to be on the World Baseball Classic roster for the U.S. when he can't even play his own games.
Yeah, and you see how much they were like the Team USA or the MLB accounts posted that he's going to be there, and I'm like, if I'm an Angels fan and I'm trying to build something here,
I'd be scared.
I wouldn't be jumping for joy that my all-star center fielder is playing in this thing.
I hate to say this also. Mike Trout is damaged goods right now.
Well, I mean, when he's out there, though, he's still a stud. But, that Angels team, I mean, you look at them, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. Yeah, I mean, it's been 2 years now. We didn't know. Originally last year when he got hurt, they were talking about the possibility of that being a chronic thing with Trout, too. So, definitely a tough thing, but
right. And at the same time, what I would also say is the Angels are going to eventually have to dig out of this one. Look what they had to do with the Pujols contract. They had to dig out of that for I don't know how many years they're on the hook for, still on that contract, but they're going to be on the hook for Trout because he can't stay healthy.
I think that's why Shohei Ohtani is not long for there. They could talk about how the fact that they're not going to trade him. The Angels are out of it this year or this upcoming season. He's going to either be traded during the season or he won't be back after this year.
Well,
there were reports. There was a story. I forget who. I think it was on ESPN had reported that they think that Shohei could be either the first $50 million a year player or the first guy to get a $500 million contract.
Yeah, that's the number I had heard. And I was going to say, if he's going to be the first $50 million player, then the Angels are not bringing him back.
No, there's no chance of that happening. And I wonder if the story about Artie Moreno now not selling the team might also have a play at that as well.
First of all,
just to go back, I'm sorry, go ahead on that, and then we'll go back to this.
I was just going to say, Artie Moreno coming out and saying he's not selling, I think that's a PR stunt at most. I don't think him saying I'm not selling is helping Major League Baseball. That's a top franchise. I know people don't want to hear that or agree. That is a California, or you want to say LA franchise that has a lot of real estate. New York, LA, Philadelphia, Chicago. When you have a franchise in those areas that's playing around, that's not good for the sport.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
But what did you want to get back to though? What were you going to say?
Well, so as far as just putting a cap on this stuff, one of the things I always like to do right after they announce this year's vote is look ahead to next year. And next year's Hall of Fame ballot does have some very interesting first-time players like Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, Chase Utley, David Wright, Matt Holliday, Adrian Gonzalez, Jose Bautista, Jose Reyes, Victor Martinez, Bartolo Colon, and then there's some other guys that I'm not going to bore you to death with. But the reason why next year is something to look at is I think we have a first ballot guy possible next year in Adrian Beltre. And again, if you're going to be a Hall of Famer in my book, you have to be very confident about that guy. And to me, Adrian Beltre is that guy. If you look at his numbers career, I was pulling it up here. I'll get it for you.
He's got 3,100 plus hits. I know that.
So he's got 3,166 career hits. So that's a very favorable number. He's got a career batting average of 286, 477 home runs, 636 doubles, which is very, very a good stat. 1,700 plus RBI.
That's pretty good.
And just some other things too. You look at, do you know the last time that Adrian Beltre had 100 plus strikeout season? 2007.
Dang. Wow.
So he puts the ball in play. He hits for a good average, a good on base percentage. He's won the Gold Glove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Silver Sluggers and others. To me, that's first ballot worthy right there.
I mean, like I said, 3,100 plus career hits. That's one of the magic numbers. 500 home runs, 3,000 hits, 300 wins. Those are all automatics into the Hall of Fame. So Beltre will get in on the 3,100 hits alone. His personality was some of the best in all of baseball. All the antics, the funny things. I don't know if you remember the story that he was one of the few Major League Baseball players that didn't wear a cup when he played baseball, which I always thought was funny, and I kind of was a little afraid every time he would take the hopper at third base that went all the way up into the body. I'd be like, ugh. But
very likable. He said that he's universally likable throughout the league.
Right. And Gold Glover at third, even with his unorthodox angle throw from third to first, if you remember his. I mean, I guess they say it doesn't always have to be perfect looking to be Hall of Fame worthy.
Yeah, there's no controversy with Trey. There's no legal trouble. Actually, if you look at his career, he does do charitable and humanitarian work. So, and if I dare bring up, I don't usually like to bring this up, but I was looking it up today. Career WAR at third base. There's only 2 other players that are actually above him in career WAR among third basemen, and that's Mike Schmidt and Eddie Matthews.
Damn. Both Hall of Famers, I think.
Yep. So, to me, Beltre is going to get in first ballot, and I think even in 2025, there's going to be a first ballot guy in Ichiro.
See, the problem and this is the problem, I don't like to say anything is automatic anymore with the Hall of Fame voting, because sometimes these writers will find a grudge with a certain player, and they'll say, I'm not putting them in because I had a personal grudge with this player, or when I interacted with this player, I didn't like them, so I'm not voting them in. And I think, first of all, I think the writers need to get a life and stop focusing on one or two interactions they had with the player. I'd say that's the reason I'm not voting them in. I don't know.
I think you're also talking about him being I don't think now. Also, just to be fair, I don't think Ichiro, or we're talking about in 2025, but in 2024, I don't think Beltre is going to get in unanimously. I think he's going to get in like, let's say 80% or so. That's the number I'm putting it at 80%.
Oh no, because some people will take Beltre's fun attitude and say that he was too over the top. That's what some of the writers are going to do. I know that already. The crotchety writers who, or as I like to say, traditional baseball writers who take everything in the old-fashioned style are going to say that Beltre had too much fun on the field and that he was too funny, too much personality. We want guys that were all about baseball.
Or they'll tell you that his numbers dropped off, which they didn't really drop off in his last 5 years.
But wait a minute. That's another one argument I can't stand. The Hall of Fame is about what? Total numbers.
Yeah.
It's not about what you did in year 1 as compared to year 15. If you got to 500 home runs, you got to 3,000 hits, or as a pitcher, you got to 300 wins, or you got 3,000 strikeouts, it shouldn't matter. Forget all the pop-up circumstance that goes on around certain players.
You're right.
It's frustrating. And you know I'm a stickler for when players are jerks on the field, or they do things off the field, or they end up with a DUI like Miguel Cabrera did, or I don't know another instance really. But another guy that we looked at in this ballot, Todd Helton, who just missed at 72.2%. I can tell you for the longest time why he's not in the ballot right now. Why he's not in the Hall of Fame right now. It's because of the Colorado bias. Because everyone is saying, well, he got his offensive numbers from being in Colorado. Okay, and who cares?
Yeah, I mean, he was really more of a hitter than a power guy. I mean, he did end up with 369 career home runs, but
he had a few batting titles, right?
Yes, in 2000, just to give you a one here, in 2000 he hit 372 and won the batting title. I mean, think about that. He won the batting title at 372, and in 2022, I think the person who won the batting title was like 315.
That's what's crazy. I mean,
he played first base, where he won a Gold Glove in 3 years. He was an All-Star 5 straight years. He was a top 20 MVP candidate 6 times. But you look at some of his years, Nick. I mean, it's with the production from 99 to 2003 with the RBI totals, and then just the averages, 315, 320, 372, 336, 329, 358, 347, 320, 302. I mean, you don't see this kind of consistent hitting in baseball.
First of all, and if you mentioned 300 to today's young group of baseball players, like in high school or middle school or high school, like, hey, why don't you go hit for average? Because you'll have a longer career in baseball if you got more hits. And they're going to look at you like you have 5 heads.
Yeah. They're going to say, oh, well, in 2001, Helton hit 49 home runs. That's what's really attractive, is the 49 home runs, where I would tell you that year the thing that's attractive was the 336 average and the 146 RBIs that he drove in, because we talked about this before, but just simplified baseball. You're supposed to get on base and get in. That's fine, but this day and age it's not done that way.
Right. And the problem is people look at the Barry Bonds year where he hit 70. What was it? 73 home runs.
3 and 01, yeah.
So he had 73 home runs, and that's it. That's all they look at Barry Bonds for that year. So I guarantee you, excuse me, that kids from 2003 on, looked at that number and said, 73 home runs. I should just hit a bunch of home runs, and I'll have a successful career.
What about all the walks? All the intentional walks?
The moment that I'll never forget is when Buck Showalter was managing the Diamondbacks, and he walked him when the bases were loaded.
Bases loaded, yep.
First of all, you'll never see that anymore in today's game.
Probably not. I think the closest thing you'll see to that is maybe somebody walking a guy if it's first and second with third base open.
It's weird because they have this weird notion that, like, hey, I'm sure you've heard this on broadcast before. Hey, well, third base is open. You can't walk him. But if first base is open, then go ahead and walk him.
Well, you know what's funny about that? I'm trying to think if Aaron Judge, like this past season, came up with third base open, if they would have walked him, considering the kind of year that he had with the 62 home runs.
I just don't think you're ever going to see that again. Barry Bonds was such a threat in 2003 that people didn't want to face him.
Todd Helton, by the way, struck out 100 times plus in a season once. And just to put that in perspective, Aaron Judge this year, who hit .311 with 62 and 131, still struck out 175 times.
Hey, anything under 200 is pretty good, though.
And Todd Helton once in his career struck out over 100, and that was, 104.
And you know what, though?
Changed.
Todd Helton, I just remember, you and I grew up in that era watching Todd Helton really play ball. Unfortunately, it was with Colorado, so that's why he didn't win a lot.
Yeah.
But I just remember Todd Helton going to the opposite field a lot, or finding the spaces in the infield, or really driving the ball. You don't see that anymore.
No, you do not.
But
I just look, I mean, that's what all these guys getting in, I look at it, being eligible, it's like how the game has changed in so many ways, and that's part of it too. And just one other nugget, I mean, it was Fred McGriff getting in also on the contemporary baseball ballot last month.
Just to explain to people as well, in case they don't know, the contemporary ballot has 16 votes, and I think there's no limit. They could vote on as many guys as they want. McGriff was the only one that got, I think he actually got the minimum 12 to get in. So that's why he got into the Hall of Fame. Yeah.
And also just one other nugget for you. So Jeff Kent, in his 10th and final season on the BBA, the WAA ballot, received 46.5%. So he's going to revert to the Historical Overview Committee in December of 2025 for consideration on the Contemporary Baseball Players Committee for the class of 2026, which is really a shame. I mean, Jeff Kent, who hit the most career home runs as a second baseman.
You know what the problem is? He was in the era.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? That's one of those guys, guilty until proven innocent. You know who was like that too, and who should have been a first ballot Hall of Fame? Piazza. Piazza didn't get in first ballot, and I think the reason why is that he played in that era.
The problem is
damn shame.
The problem is there was a lot of rumors around him too. Did he use PEDs? Did he not? Again, I don't think he did. To be honest, I don't think he did, but there was a lot of speculation around him.
Yeah, but there was never any factual evidence that said he did.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that there's factual evidence. I'm just saying there was a lot of... As soon as and this is what I hate about baseball now. As soon as a rumor comes out that you did anything, that's it. Your career is tainted. It's over. If you get tainted by the PED rumor. And the MLB writers remember it. And then when it's your turn to get to the Hall of Fame, they'll go back 10 years ago and find the rumor of you being suspected of PEDs, and then you're never getting in.
Except if you're David Ortiz.
Well, right. Okay, you got me on that one.
Right, but I mean, and Mike Piazza, who had probably the greatest home run in the history of the Mets organization, and probably one of the best in baseball history, of course, and you know, just part of his great career. I mean, he got in eventually. Don't get me wrong, but it just the fact that he didn't get in was the thing that just drove me nuts. But that's on a baseball. That's on a baseball committee on a writer thing. As far as the sport itself, there's so many other problems. But this was a cool thing to see. So congratulations to Scott Rolen and Fred McGriff. Scott Rolen, well deserved. Fred McGriff, long overdue. And you know what? Next year, I think we're going to have a first ballot guy, and I think in 2025 we're going to have a first ballot. Certainly, when it comes to the Hall of Fame voting, a lot of cool things to watch with baseball.
And I just want to point out one thing, and I know, wow, I can't believe we spent 45 minutes talking about baseball, by the way. And we have a lot of football to do, which we'll get to in a few minutes.
Season's so much more fun than the regular season at times, it feels like, right?
Right. But I just want to point out something that I was looking at on the list of everybody with the vote numbers. So Scott Rowland and Todd Helton had no allegations, pretty much down-to-earth guys.
Right.
Billy Wagner, you could say, was a pretty much down-to-earth guy. But as soon as you get to, like, Andrew Jones, Gary Sheffield, Carlos Beltran, Jeff Kent, A-Rod, Manny Ramirez, Andy Pettit, all those guys were suspected of PEDs.
Well, Pettit took HGH. We know that.
No, that's what, but I'm just saying, either suspected or known.
Yes.
So that's just a common appearance I wanted to point out.
No, you're definitely right, and I think Sheffield is one of those guys too. Because
oh yeah, I left his name out too. Yes,
no, I think you did bring up Sheffield, but Sheffield's another guy too. That
Sheffield is a little bit of a sleazy individual, also.
I mean, he like the greatest guy in the world. I mean, well, he never did.
He had 500 home runs, though. I think, right?
Yes, yeah, he had 500 plus because he hit it because he was a Met when he hit number 500. I remember that quite well.
Also, one of the greatest right field arms of all time.
Yeah, I mean, he had a great right field arm. He had one of the most, scary batting stances in the history of baseball. You know, if the baseball field was about 300 feet wider, he probably would have 800 career home runs.
Oh my God. I mean, I just remember being so afraid, like the way the bat was swinging up and down. By the way, he probably had the most pop-ups of all time because his swing was going down each time. You remember, like when he would swing up on a ball, you would just see, and he would just look up. It's a high fly pop-up. And you're like, oh God, again. But all right, let's move on. We're gonna stay in baseball. Yes, we are talking a lot of baseball in this episode. I know. Sound the alarms.
Yes, but not actual game stuff.
Yeah, no one's going to talk about MLB games anyway. Now to the unfortunate news. So, per Britt Garoli, Chicago White Sox pitcher Mike Clevinger is under investigation by MLB following allegations of domestic violence involving the mother of his 10-month-old daughter, and to add a cherry on top, child abuse. This is not good. This is really not good.
No, it's definitely not. So the investigation stems from allegations made by a woman, Olivia Feinstein, who accused Clevinger of physical and emotional abuse towards his 3 children and their 2 mothers, and herself included. And this was from The Athletic.
This is going to end really bad. I could already see this ending. I mean, we just came off a domestic violence situation with Trevor Bauer, who, by the way, the arbiter is an asshole for completely just letting him get off, essentially. I don't know what the arbiter was thinking. I don't know. The arbiter said, like, oh, you get days, like a jail sentence. He got time off for, what do they call that? Time off for good behavior?
Yeah.
I mean,
because early good behavior, yeah.
Now, Trevor Bauer is never going to play in Major League Baseball ever again.
You know what? I don't know. Can you just see some team being that desperate for a pitcher that will sign him to a minimum contract? You know, every team needs pitching, and I think somebody might be actually desperate enough where they might actually take a flyer on him.
I think people are worried, though, about him as an individual. 1, because of the domestic violence situation, and 2, I don't know the best way to describe it, but the violent nature on his YouTube channel and his social media, like being like very over the top opinionated about
He
stuff.
is very opinionated on social media. Yes, absolutely.
So that would worry me as an organization. Hey, what the hell is he going to say about us if he doesn't like being here?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. I just
so
think, I mean, and I don't agree with it, but I just think that somebody's going to be so desperate for a pitcher. We know how these guys go through like 10, 11, 12 starters a year. Maybe not. And again, it would be at a minimum contract and it would be in a desperation situation. But yeah. And as far as Clevinger goes, remember the White Sox have a 1 year, $12 million contract at the end of November. So it's not like he's been there forever. This is what's going to be something to watch here to see if either the team or does Major League Baseball step in and take action on this.
well, I hate to do this again, but we're going to have to do this again because is Rob Manfred going to step in? Is Rob Manfred going to do his job? Or is he just going to let the teams fall on the sword again?
Well, see, here would be the thing too: is if let's say they do step in, how long would he get suspended? Are we talking about like the 25 games that Aroldis Chapman got, or about the Trevor Bauer situation where he gets suspended for the length of like Bauer?
First of all, Aroldis Chapman probably has one of the worst reputations of all time I've ever seen in Major League Baseball. I mean, and Aroldis Chapman didn't help his case when he decided to basically go AWOL for the Yankee playoffs, which probably cost them any chance of winning this past season. But I digress from that to this, which basically, when I look at the Clevinger situation, Clevinger was on the Padres, right? When he was coming back from injury.
So, yeah, so he was originally a Guardian, and then he went to San Diego and they signed him. But remember, he had Tommy John surgery when San Diego got him. I think was it a trade or I think it was a trade if I remember correctly. But he had Tommy John surgery, and he was just working his way back from that, and he was hurt at times last season as well. So he hasn't really pitched that much over the last couple of years.
Well, guess what? He's
Yeah.
now he's not going to be pitching.
Yeah, no. Well, you would think. So the White Sox claim they did not know about the allegations upon signing him. And,
What?
Well, so this story just came out though on Tuesday. Remember, he signed in November.
All right.
So
Here,
baseball's gonna have to step. Baseball's gonna have to step in with this. They're gonna have to do something, Nick.
All right. Timeout. So whenever these situations come out, usually the situations are known 3 to 5 months in advance of when we get these news stories when they come out. Usually, would you say we find out? We find out usually after they happen.
Yes.
So I'm having a hard time believing that the White Sox did not know what they were getting into when they traded for him.
You would think that these guys do a full do their own scouting report. No pun intended. They do their own, investigative stuff.
I mean,
background stuff about a guy.
Do I need to go back to the whole situation with this was a manager, not a player, but who was it? The former Guardian and then became the Mets manager, who had the domestic.
I see, Mickey Callaway.
I mean, do you remember how bad that was? I mean, where Cleveland claimed they had no idea, and the Mets claimed they had no idea.
That was really bad, yeah.
And if Rob Manfred learned anything from that, he needs to step in sooner and say, look, this is a bad situation. And this is a double whammy, because this is domestic violence involving the mother and child abuse of the kid.
Well, that's true. They were all talking about another angle to this, and that's the child abuse into this. This is more than just domestic violence. This is child abuse too. So yeah, no, it's really bad. There's no other way to sugarcoat this.
I mean, he's going to get released. It's a matter of when. Now, he will come out and probably defend himself and say it's being misquoted. That's what every player does when they end up in a domestic violence situation. I mean, this also kind of reminds me of, in the NFL, the whole Ray Rice situation, where Ray basically tried to claim that everything was misappropriated or misquoted. And then the NFL, well, we all know what the NFL did after that. They totally screwed up the suspension, giving him a 2-game suspension leading to then they said, oops, we made a mistake, 10 games. Then they sued, and then they had to meet in the middle because the NFL made a mistake. But I don't know. I forgot what the rule is for Major League Baseball. Is it like 20 to 25 games?
Chapman got 25, if I remember correctly. Now,
I mean,
what they could tell you now. See, this is what they should. This is one of the other things they should have been focusing on when last season was stuff like this, and not little knick-knacky things.
I mean, what's their answer going to be? So he did 2 things. Let's double the suspension. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, he's got to go away for the year. He's got to go away for the year. There's no way he's stepping on a field this year, right?
I can't see how he's going to.
Look what happened to Bauer.
So Bauer, remember, got 324 games originally.
Then the arbiter stepped in.
And then it was later reduced to 194.
Yeah, and then the arbiter took all of it basically away at one point.
Now, just looking at some prior history here with with suspended players and domestic violence.
There's a few I can think of off the top of my head. Jose Arraez was one of them.
Reyes got 51 games back in May of 2016.
Yeah, but I think he actually beat up his wife, if I'm not mistaken.
So Chapman got 30 back in 2016 with the Yankees. That was in March. That was in March. Reyes was 51. Let's just see. I'm going to look at some other guys here. Roberto Ozuna with the Blue Jays in 2018, 75. Odubel Herrera with the Phillies, 85, which is the remainder of the season. Julio Arraez from the Dodgers, 20. I think the most recent one was Carlos Martinez, 85.
So I guess it just depends. Maybe they have to investigate it and see how bad the situations are. That's how they determine it. But I don't know if I agree with that. They need to have a hard, fast rule in place, in my opinion.
So in 2015, MLB and the MLB PA announced the creation of a domestic violence policy. This was in August of 2015. Officially, domestic violence policies include within the domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse policy. According to the policy, the commissioner can place any player suspected of domestic violence, sexual assault, or child abuse on administrative leave for up to 7 days while conducting an investigation. And
that's it.
I'm just trying to read more of this here.
I don't know. That makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Well, I guess it could be that, and then they can announce something. That's what it sounds like. The policy does not include minimum or maximum punishments.
What?
The commissioner can choose to reinstate the player or can defer judgment until after the criminal proceedings conclude.
Actually, I do remember that because when the whole Bauer situation happened, Rob basically said, I can't. He basically said my hands are tied until the investigation was over, is what he said.
The first guy that was actually suspended under this policy was Chapman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he got 30 games.
Now, we interviewed, and I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but we interviewed someone from NBCLA who basically said the investigation had a lot of loose ends and a lot of different loopholes that they had to figure out. Like, it wasn't a clear cut and dry situation, but the thing with Bauer, there was pictures. I'm sure you remember this also, where the woman was basically beat up. Like, I've never seen such horrible things in my life.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if we're going to see pictures from this situation. They usually do end up trickling out at some point. I don't care what the situation is. You committed domestic violence and you're committing child abuse, allegedly. You need to go away.
So, Nick, when I first saw this story on Tuesday afternoon, just the wording of it from Britt and from, I think it was
Katie Strong.
Katie Strang, yeah.
Strong.
I'm sorry. Just the wording of it from them, it didn't sound good at all. Now, sometimes you think if you could read a headline, you can kind of like decipher and think in your mind about, okay, that sounds rough, but this one sounded just really bad when you not only domestic violence but child abuse. Now, the policy in baseball is all good, and the most recent pitcher a player, I should say, that was disciplined from this policy was Carlos Martinez, former Cardinal pitcher who was a free agent at the time. 85-game unpaid suspension, retroactive to June 19th. This came out September of last season.
And actually, it's worse because in baseball, I think a suspension doesn't start until you're signed with a team. I
believe that is correct. Yes.
So I know in other sports, a lot of times they'll just let it go with games, but like if you're just sitting on the shelf, they count it as suspension of games. But Major League Baseball is strict in that regard. You have to sign with a team first before your suspension can start. So this is going to end poorly. I mean, Clevinger will be released. I think that's a given. One of these is horrible, but both, that's a disgrace to athletes.
See, I think this is something they should have worked on during the lockout. And I don't know if this is actually there's a way, but if something like this comes across, that the contract can be voided. And I guess there's a way it could be.
He's a 1-year deal. I mean, how much are you really going to fight?
That's true. But
if this was... Well, Trevor Bauer's situation was different because he had a lot of money in the 2-year contract.
He had like 40 plus million a year, I think, for a 3-year contract.
And if I'm not mistaken, the Dodgers basically got out of the second year of the contract because of it.
I think I'm trying to remember. I don't remember if there was like a possibility not to that did allow them to do that. Yeah.
I mean, the games he was suspended for, that money went back in their pocket, which it should have. But I don't know. Baseball lately, over the last couple of years, has had a domestic violence issue, and now we had child abuse to it. Like,
tack this on to all the other problems with baseball's had. I'll tell you what. I wonder why the sport is sinking fast.
I mean, I hate playing armchair commissioner because I feel like we do it better than Rob Manfred does. But you want a hard, fast. You want a way to stop these domestic violence issues in the sport of baseball. You get suspended for a year. First offense, domestic violence.
Well, see, do you remember when the drug suspension? Not trying to compare drug suspension to this, but remember how poor the drug suspensions were in the beginning before they had to ramp those up, where it was 3 times and you get a lifetime.
You got banned.
Yeah, and then you can apply for reinstatement. We all know that Henry Mejia was one of those guys that was able to get back in, but wasn't it like?
But he's an idiot.
Palmeiro, if you remember Rafael Palmeiro, when he got suspended, only got suspended for 10 days.
Yeah, but first of all, just Henry Mejia was an idiot. Like, he got caught each time.
3 times, yeah.
So Henry Mejia, I had no sympathy for because he did it 3 times, think he'd get away with it. I mean, if you did it once, you think you're going to get away with it again. I mean, but that's what I would say. If you're dumb enough to physically harm somebody, whether it's a girlfriend or a wife, and then or child abuse, first of all, he needs to go away for at least a year, in my opinion, suspension-wise. One is worse. One is bad enough. Domestic violence is bad enough. Child abuse just made this a whole heck of a lot worse, in my opinion. I mean, his reputation is now ruined. I'll tell you that right now. He has no reputation left. And one of them is bad to come back from, but to come back from both, no team's going to take a chance on him, right?
Don't think so.
I don't know.
The thing is, though, like, we're talking about this from like a baseball thing, but we don't know about a legal thing, because just looking at like Chapman's thing, Chapman's legal result, the charges were dropped because of lack of evidence. Arraez's situation, the charges were dropped when the wife didn't cooperate with the prosecutors. We do have a guilty thing from Hector Oliveira back in 2016. He was found guilty. Like Jerry's Familia, charges were dismissed. Derek Norris wasn't formally charged. Stephen Wright, charges retired by Williamson County Court. Jose Torres, unknown. Roberto Ozuna, case still ongoing. I mean, but
It's not a good track record.
no. I mean, it's happening more. I don't want to say it's happening a lot, but it's happening more frequently with baseball. Yeah. So,
Well, you and I,
not a good sign. And yes, this will be another test for Rob Manfred to see how hard he comes down on this. But
I don't see him coming down hard at all. To be honest, I don't.
I mean, that would be terrible because I mean, this is one of the only ones I can remember that actually there's child abuse as well as domestic violence.
This is I can tell you right now, this is automatically a first. Right now, we've never seen, and I would say, except for the NBA, NBA's had child abuse situations before. The player that comes to mind in the NBA was Rajon Rondo, who had the child abuse allegations where apparently he was like slapping and hitting his kids. Now, he's not exactly the most normal human being on the planet because I think he had a gun situation allegedly also way back when, but I don't know. Like I said, to have domestic violence and child abuse in the same sentence, that's a scary situation.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. Well, we're going to stay. I hate to say this, but we're going to stay in the domestic violence news front. We're going to move over to football, and it's kind of timely because of the Niners being in the playoffs and being a favorite. So per Robert Salonga, I think who writes for the Mercury News,
Right.
said the San Francisco 49ers, I think defensive lineman Charles Omenihu, I'm sure I'm totally butchering that name, arrested after domestic violence allegation in San Jose. By the way, this could be the worst possible timing to be arrested for domestic violence.
Yeah, when your team is about to play for the NFC Championship.
I don't know. Do we have like a story? Because I've been trying to look all over the place to try to find.
So he was arrested on suspicion of misdemeanor domestic violence after police were called to his San Jose home. He's 25. He was booked at the Santa Clara County Jail and then released after posting bail. A woman told officers that Omenihu is her boyfriend and that he, quote, pushed her to the ground during an argument. The woman complained of arm pain, but that officers did not observe any visible physical injuries and that she declined medical attention. So let's see here.
Well, while you're looking, one thing I forgot to point out with the baseball story, and I'm going to point it out here.
Sure.
Some of these women, which I feel for, because this is a tough situation to be in. I don't understand why these women are afraid to press charges against these athletes.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing about this, so this happened Monday afternoon when he was arrested. Now, did this happen? Okay, so yeah, this happened right on Monday afternoon. So this is like a year-old thing. Now, I don't know, and I have to go back and read more detail about the Clevinger story, but the Clevinger story, is that recent, like when this happened?
Yeah.
Oh, well, sometimes we're talking about situations that are almost a year or two old too. But
wait, so this is not a recent thing?
This story with Omenihu happened Monday afternoon.
Oh, well, it's within the same week. I mean,
right. So, Omenihu has been pretty much a reserve player for the 49ers. I mean, a key guy, but
I mean,
right now there's no.
But what are you
you have to, like,
thinking? But what are you thinking? You're in the middle of a playoff run.
I don't know. It seems like a lot of times we're talking about domestic violence problems with NFL players, right?
I don't know. It says here.
And this has always been the thing that I think Adele's had the hardest job in dealing with has been domestic violence, and he's
the
not very good
NFL.
at this.
The NFL has the biggest domestic violence problem by far. I think we can agree on that front.
Absolutely, yeah.
It says also. Let me make sure I get this right. Police also obtained an emergency protective order and served it to Omenihu, who was required to stay away from the woman while the order is in effect. Authorities said the results of an ongoing investigation will be presented to Santa Clara County District Attorney's Office for evaluation of possible charges. No additional details were released because the alleged offense is a misdemeanor and Omenihu is out of custody. There is no strict deadline for when charges would have to be filed.
Well, see that. So that's one of the things I would say with this. Not trying to be a legal expert, but misdemeanor domestic violence. I mean, all domestic violence is bad.
See, that's the problem, though. People misconstrue that domestic violence. Oh, well, it's felony domestic violence or it's misdemeanor. No, domestic violence is domestic violence. I mean, I just don't get it. I don't get it. What is wrong with athletes today?
Yeah. I mean, it's not the first time either. We're talking about 49ers players having domestic violence or gender violence problems.
Oh, I see that. Yeah. So it says over the last decade, let's see. Most recently, former star linebacker Reuben Foster was released from the team during the 2018 season after a domestic violence arrest in Tampa. I remember that, actually. I don't know. For some reason, the Niners have a history of domestic violence situations, which that tells me that the leadership and the ownership are not doing a good job controlling situations.
Oh. This happens. I mean, this hasn't happened now in 5 years, but still, I mean, it's a lengthy history.
And you know what? This is now a distraction for the Niners.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because and I've said this many times.
So, yeah, and Omenihu's got 4.5 sacks this season. If you're just talking about him, on the field here, 4.5 sacks this season. He had 2 sacks and a forced fumble in the wild card win over the Seahawks, and he played 15 snaps in the 49ers divisional round win over the Cowboys. But he did injure his oblique, but was able to return to the game. So, actually, he's kind of an important member of their defensive line.
Remember also, and again, like what we said in MLB, Omenihu is a free agent. So
he's going to be a free agent in March, right?
So that's probably going to be the end of him in a Niners uniform, if I had to take a guess. Now, the one difference I will say is in the NFL, people get way more chances than any other sport.
Yeah, well, that I think also has to do with how poor the NFL's policy has been towards domestic violence.
Like I said, and this is another thing I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't say. Why aren't the big 4 leagues working together and partnering on a domestic violence policy where the 4 leagues stand together and say, domestic violence, suspended for the year, and then you have to reapply for reinstatement. And if you're on good behavior, we'll let you back in our league.
Yeah, see, I think it sounds so easy to say that, but there's going to be I'll bet you right now, if they did that, that some of the players' unions would probably come down and not agree with that. I mean, I'm with you. I think that makes a lot of sense for that to happen. I mean, it makes sense. That's why it won't happen. But yeah, it should be like that.
Well, wait a minute, and I totally agree with what you just said. That the problem,
one side, the Players Association. I don't think they would.
Okay, but here's my problem with that statement, which you just said. Not because of what the way you said, but the problem I have is, so then the Players Association is going to condone domestic violence then?
Well, I don't think they're going to condone it, but I think they want a different policy. I would say. I think they would agree to some suspension, but
Okay, but
something like this, but these two sides can't. I mean, two sides in all sports can't agree on what the sky color is. So you think they're going to agree on something like this?
But I'm saying
so.
But it makes no sense. So you as a Players Association look bad because you're not willing to agree that domestic violence needs to be treated with more punishment.
I get that, but I mean, we've been down this road before. I mean, look at the Watson situation. We were down. Look at how bad that got. Right.
Well, I mean, I mentioned this last week with Tom, and I'm sure I talked to you about this. That Deshaun Watson went from a alleged sexual misconduct investigation with almost 40 women to a dumbass owner in Cleveland, Joe Haslam, giving him $300 million guaranteed, actually more than $300 million guaranteed. And now you have a PR nightmare in the NFL because of an owner that was so in distress for a quarterback, he didn't even think about the sexual misconduct investigation. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm talking about here. Situations like that, or I don't know, there's so many of them. Like the Ray Rice situation, which I brought up. The NFLPA's got to budge. They do. I mean, if they don't, then you're just going to keep having the same issue.
Well, I was going to say, these things are going to continue to happen unless something does come down. And I like your thought, though. I mean, all four leagues coming together to a year minimum. I mean, you know what, Nick? You just make too much sense. That's the problem. I mean, I agree with you 100% on that.
Well,
but there's going to be a side that doesn't take that.
I'm about to steal a phrase from you because we haven't used this phrase in a long time.
Sure.
What's the definition of insanity?
Oh, of course. Yeah. You do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. Absolutely. It is insanity.
Guess what? The NFL domestic violence policy is the definition of insanity.
Yeah. And Goodell tries to just blow over it and pray this doesn't happen anymore.
And then you get headlines like this. And most of the times when it happened, it's from a no-name, non-playoff team, usually. This is a playoff team which might win the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah, and that's where this is going to be. Now, I mean, I didn't get a lot of coverage on it on Tuesday. Now, this just broke literally on Tuesday, so we'll see if this ends up becoming more of a story as the week progresses. That'll be something to watch here. But
I just hope that we don't like the LA County that was dealing with Trevor Bauer. They basically threw the case out and no charges. I hope that we don't see the same thing here with the Santa Clara County, where they just say, you know what, he's an athlete. We're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
But the percentages say that that's going to happen again. Like, and I'm praying to God, the woman does. I'm all for the woman being protected here. Do not run away. If you got hurt and you physically got hurt in this situation, press the charges. I'm serious. Like, if you're just going to run away and you're going to... why? Because they're afraid of the athlete? I'm going to ask that a million times.
So, I'm just going to repeat a line that I think either you or I might have said at the start of this. Because the alleged offense is a misdemeanor and Omenihu was out of custody, there was no strict deadline for when charges would have to be filed.
What they're referring to is... the statute of limitations doesn't exist because it's not a felony charge. Yeah. At least that's what I think it is. Yeah. This looks bad for the NFL. This is a PR nightmare for the NFL. It's a playoff team, which is favored to be in the Super Bowl. So you know what the media is going to do if the Niners end up in the Super Bowl, right?
2 weeks of this, yeah.
You're just going to hear this over and over and over again to the point where what's going to happen, and they're not allowed to ignore the media during Super Bowl week because of the dumb media policy.
Yeah, it's not COVID. We're not in COVID times right now down there at the Super Bowl. By
the way, I think that media policy is bogus. The players shouldn't have to talk to the media every single second of every game.
Well, it's why, Nick. It's just it's an event. The Super Bowl's an event. I mean, unless your team's actually in it. I mean, it's not even a game anymore. It's a week-long event. I mean, we've seen that they have special stuff the Monday night of when the team of Super Bowl week on. It's like a concert or something. I mean, that's what it's become. It's become an app. I mean, it's been like this, but it's become an event. Unless your team is actually in the game, then
see, the joke I make is it's an event where a football game is happening.
That's exactly it. You know what? That's why I felt like our last real week of football was this past Saturday and Sunday.
Because once the Super Bowl happens, you get into that circus that is the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And it's even worse this year because you have Rihanna leading the halftime show, which, by the way, I like her music. But like, it becomes a circus, and then all her promotions, and Apple is now the presenting sponsor of the Super Bowl. So you're going to see Apple products, sponsors all over the place. And like,
fortunately for us, we'll have enough stuff to talk about besides the game that we won't just focus strictly on it. Like, I know leading into that week, we do have the NBA trade deadline. So there will be things that'll keep us up until the game. But yeah, I mean, unless your team's actually in the game, and I could say this because when the Giants were in it back for Super Bowl 42 and 46, I mean, we were talking all Giants nonstop. But other than that, I mean, if your team's not in the game, I mean, it's really just like it's an event. That's exactly what it is. It's like, you go out with your friends to watch the game, like I'm going to be this year, like I do every year. And, it's just a great thing to be with friends and stuff. And you're watching a game, part of entertainment. I think you described it perfectly there.
So, I mean, it's an unfortunate situation for the Niners. I think they'll be okay, but it's going to be a small distraction no matter how you look at it.
This will next couple of days if the story continues to develop. Yeah.
I mean, if they charge him and he goes to jail, then it's going to become a massive distraction for the team.
Yeah.
But all right, let's move away from the domestic violence. We'll go into the games. Let's do some recapping of the divisional round. I'm not surprised. We'll talk about the Niners first, defeating the Cowboys. What was the score? 19-12.
19-12, yeah.
Very bizarre game, defensive game. Not a lot of offense. I think Dak had 2 picks.
Another 2 picks. He looked awful again. They were talking about, he looked right against the Bucks, but besides that game, I mean, he's just not looked right since coming back from that injury.
Right. And I don't know. It's just Dak looked really bad out there. And I'm just trying to look at some of the statistics.
Scott Pollard being hurt, also going out with what was later revealed as a broken fibula. A big blow too there for the Cowboys. Just all in all, I mean, this, and what's amazing too. One of the things that's been talked about in the days still following this game was the Cowboys Twitter account put out a tweet, and I'm going to just read it word for word here. Dak Prescott gave away the ball twice in the narrow loss to the 49ers in a matchup the Cowboys had a chance to win if they didn't get self-inflicted wounds. That tweet, by the way, is still up as of this show.
I mean, was Jerry Jones standing behind the social media person saying, "Can you please put that up?"
I mean, I don't know. I mean, but once again, the Cowboys, it is amazing because somehow they still got to playoffs this year, and once again now they can't get out of the divisional round.
I mean, just 3 times I did this in the ETB minute the other day that Dak's been to the divisional round 3 times and has been eliminated all 3 times.
Yeah, I think him and Tony Romo both have the same postseason record, 2-4, but 0-3 in the divisional round. Now,
the statistics, just looking at them, Brock Purdy outplayed Dak Prescott. Now, it was ugly on both fronts, but Brock Purdy, even though he didn't throw any touchdown passes, he made the throws when necessary to get the points needed so that the other great offensive weapons on that team could perform. I mean, I'm just looking at the statistics. McCaffrey again had another touchdown. I mean, it doesn't look like there were very many touchdowns put up on the board. It looks like two touchdowns. It looks like total.
Yeah. So remember, the Cowboys had one, and Mar, that field goal kicker, had a field goal blocked, which would have been, an extra point. Excuse me, that was blocked. That would have been shanked to the left. And boy, I mean, I'll talk about him this postseason as well. Just like
that was bad. I mean, I'm surprised that they brought him into this game, to be honest.
Well, I think it's tough to work out another kicker the week of a conference championship.
Right, but how many kicks did he miss against the Bucks? I mean,
4.
Can you imagine if that was during the season, he would have been cut?
Yes, no question.
So, Purdy outplayed him. Outplayed Prescott, not by a lot. This was a battle all the way to the end of who was going to score. And the weird thing also, I think Pollard is your number one going forward, not Zeke.
Well, now
when he's healthy.
Yeah, no, I that's for sure. I'll tell you though, the one thing I would say about Purdy real quick, I was wondering going into this game, this was the best defense he was playing going into this season, all season in the limited time that he's played. But still, the big thing though with him, he didn't make a mistake. He didn't turn the ball over, and that's really all you can ask for out of him. He doesn't have to throw for a touchdown. You've got McCaffrey, you've got Elijah Mitchell, you have Debo as a running who can play your running back too. So I mean, you got your running backs, so you don't have to be throwing the ball 40 to 50 times per game. And as long as you just don't turn the ball over, give your team a chance to win, especially with that suffocating 49er defense. And they were at it again.
And I mean, if they win this year, McCaffrey needs to be the credit guy. Him coming into San Francisco, change of pace. He needed to get away from Carolina, coming into San Francisco under a different regime, better weapons, able to spread the field so he could run the football better. I mean, he's got to be up there for their most valuable player of the year.
I think so too, because Debo was hurt for a little bit. Mitchell was out for a couple of months as well, but also Brock Purdy. When Garoppolo goes down, and you're wondering, can this kid step in? Mr. Irrelevant. We know his story now being very, very. You know what it's going to create now. You don't want to look ahead to next season, but what do the 49ers do next year now? Because you still have Trey Lance on the team. Garoppolo's probably going to be gone. I would imagine. I mean, I don't know though. I mean, you have 3 options at QB there going into next year.
You have to start Purdy. I mean, he is leading this team. You know what? I give him a lot of credit because Purdy is a gutsy quarterback that's willing to make the throws.
Oh, absolutely. It's just the fascinating thing will be if on Sunday against the Eagles he throws 3 picks. What happens?
Well, did you see that? You should, and we'll talk about this more when we talk about the Niners playing. But there's a report out there that Jimmy Garoppolo might play in the championship game.
Well, so he's working his way back, and this would be around the time frame that they were originally talking about if he didn't have surgery. If he was not going to be out for the season, that he could be back by the conference championship game. But I don't think there's any way you can start him against the Eagles.
I will destroy the 49ers if I find out that Garoppolo ends up starting this game over Purdy.
I don't think there's any way, Nick. I mean, you ride Purdy all the way here. I mean, you want to have if enough where he could be active for the game. That's one thing, but
if you want it to be the emergency in case Purdy gets hurt, that's one thing.
Yeah, I think that's what you're looking at here. I don't think there's any way in the world, him being out for as long as he's been, you throw him back in against that Eagles team. I don't think there's any way. I really don't.
But the Cowboys, it looked ugly again. Right. But the Cowboys, it looked ugly again. Of course, what we were all waiting for when the Cowboys lost, right?
Yeah, Jerry Jones' comments and also Mike McCarthy.
Oh, I was talking about a certain media person.
Oh, Stephen A., of course. I know. I wish I was home Monday to watch that. But
by the way, did you see the wig
I did, yeah. And I'll tell you, that was one of the stories I was thinking about too. Was would Mike McCarthy survive a bad game?
By the way,
And
Jerry made some unfortunate comments. I don't know if you saw it. I think it was last
I
week.
can't keep both that he unfortunate comments that he makes. I can't keep.
Well,
both of them.
not unfortunate, but he said that McCarthy's job is safe regardless. And I said, "Are you kidding me? How can his job be safe regardless?"
Look, if the Cowboys want to just be a mediocre team every single year, that's fine.
Well, I mean, here's the dumb thing about when it comes to ownership in sports. So, obviously, the Cowboys are the most valued team, I think, in all of sports. That includes soccer and everything else. So, who cares? So what? You have the most valued team in sports. You're kind of missing something that goes along with being the most valued team in sports.
Winning
a Super Bowl.
Championships, yeah. Well, my basketball team is one of the more valued teams in all of sports, and they don't win. So sometimes just look at the fact that I'm pocketing a couple $1 billion every year.
He doesn't care, and that's why he doesn't care. Because
and that's why they don't win.
Because as long as the money comes in, he doesn't care what happens.
I mean, Nick, they have not been to a conference championship game in almost 30 years now.
What, the Cowboys?
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
I mean, how is that? How can you sit here and tell me that that's successful? Oh, why?
It's
because
not.
I'm pocketing billions of dollars every year. I'm the most valued team in sports. That's sometimes what these guys all they look at. I mean, I'm like, that's fine. You want to be that? That's fine. But if you don't want to win, if you don't want to be a great, I mean, Cowboys are a good team every year, but I wouldn't say they're great every year.
So the Dallas Cowboys are worth $8 billion.
Yeah.
I mean, and Jerry keeps saying, "Oh, well, I'll do everything in my power." Well, no, obviously you aren't, because the team is not making it past the conference.
Yeah, I mean, look at how many players they didn't bring back this past year that were very valuable to them. Now, granted, they still got over the top. I mean, I thought they were done after week 1, so they proved me wrong in that regard. I mean, Cooper Rush stepped in, actually did a pretty good job for them until Dak came back. But ever since Dak's come back, he's had interceptions in almost every game, and somewhere he had multiple interceptions.
I mean, they overpaid Dak in every way, shape, or form, giving him $40 million a year. I don't know what the hell Jerry was thinking, and
we're going to be talking about that with a lot of guys in the future here. So Jerry's starting a trend with that,
right? But I'm just saying that he should have let Dak sit out. I would have done it. What do you? Dak has no leverage anywhere else.
No.
So if Jerry said, "Let's have a franchise tag," what was Dak going to do? Sit out? It's not worth $40 million a year. It's a joke.
No, he's not.
All right, let's move on to another interesting game. Chiefs best the Jaguars. Patrick Mahomes suffers a high ankle sprain. This game had a lot of weird situations happen in it.
Yeah, no, sure did. I mean, obviously, the big story about this, not only the Chiefs winning, but the Mahomes injury. Nick, I saw it in real time.
So did I.
I said at the time, I said he can't come back into this game because it looked like it was a high ankle sprain. You know, I've seen that kind of injury before. It was being stepped on, but you had to. I understand it's the playoffs, it's the divisional round, but at that point, you almost had to look at your future for a second. If he goes back out there, and if it was a knee, or it could possibly lead to a knee, and we're talking about torn ACL, then not only are you losing Mahomes for the rest of the game, but you're losing him for next year. Now, are the Chiefs good enough where they can overcome that? I mean, they've still got Andy Reid as the coach. They still got Travis Kelce. They still got options there, but I mean, it's a significant blow. Ironically enough, one of the most important drives in this game was the drive that Chad Henne led them on, that 98-yard touchdown drive, which was the longest drive in Chiefs postseason history, and a great moment for Henne in his 15-year career. But
wow, I didn't know he was in the league that long.
Yeah, he's been in the league for a very, very long time. But Mahomes then comes back. And the thing was, too, Mahomes came back into this game, and he didn't really throw the deep ball, couldn't really throw the deep ball. He threw it a couple of times, but a lot of the time they were either running it or it was those quick short slant passes or side passes where they were taking off from there. So you kind of knew what they were doing. And that's what I think would help the Jaguars come back in this one. And let's be fair too, the Jaguars played pretty well. Now the problem was they needed to be perfect, and they were not perfect, but they played well enough where they had a chance for the most part.
Right. I mean, I look at the numbers. I mean, Hank's not going to like what I'm about to say, but Trevor Lawrence was not him in this matchup.
No, I mean, he was okay. I mean, there was one, he made a great throw, and I forget who this was. It wasn't Evan Ingram, but it was Christian Kirk. And this was one of the biggest plays in the game, was the great throw that he made that Kirk dropped. And it really it was about a 10-point swing at that time. I think it was in the second or third quarter.
I mean, the way I look at this game, Jacksonville put up a good fight, but we knew Kansas City was going to win this game. I was talking to some people about the scheduling of the way that they put these games together. Why wasn't the Giant game at 4:30, and why wasn't this game at 8:15?
Well, I agree with you. Look, selfishly, as somebody who had to be up at 3:00 Sunday morning, I was saying the same thing. But it seems like they want to try and get every team into every slot possible. You're just playing an afternoon game in the wild card round, and I think they're thinking also, it's an NFC East divisional matchup there in Philadelphia. That could be why. I mean, I would have loved to have seen Mahomes in prime time there, but at the same time, now you look at it, the AFC Championship game is going to be the later game on Sunday. So I think they put everybody into all different slots. That could be why. Look, I agree with you. I wish the Giant game was at 4:30. Now, granted, if the outcome would have been the same, then maybe not. But
I just don't.
I think that's why they do it.
But logically, I don't get it because everyone's out. They're not going to be able to watch the game. They're going out to bars or whatever. I guess they'll watch the games in the bars. But I just didn't understand Giants Eagles being 8:15 on a Saturday night. That made no sense to me whatsoever. But just to put a bow on this one, Mahomes was hobbling big time on that on that ankle sprain. I mean, I mean, he will have some time to recover, so hopefully he'll be okay. This is not like Tua with the Dolphins having the concussions and trying to be forced back on the field. And Hank and I talked about it on Game On last week, that how the heck, that the Dolphins already announced that he's going to be the starting quarterback next year. How could you do that without even knowing what his health situation is?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on down there. But, yeah, so there was actually some speculation that Mahomes may not even play Sunday championship. Now, it's supposedly Mahomes is saying he's feeling a little bit better. I mean, no, he's not going to be 100%. High ankle sprains are usually 4 to 6 week injuries. If this was during the season, there probably would have been a good chance we're talking about Mahomes on the short-term injured reserve list.
Right. And Mahomes is not missing any games. He's not missing any games. This is the playoffs.
But he's also going to be severely limited in what he can do. And again, I'll echo back to what we saw here on Saturday. He couldn't really throw a lot of deep balls against Jaguars. A lot of it was the running back was running the ball with Pacheco, or they were just doing those short little side passes.
Well,
which
I would say also that it was his plant leg, right?
I believe it was, yes.
So then that's even worse because he can't plant and make throws.
Yeah.
I don't know. The offenses were okay. They weren't great. I mean, their running situation was okay. I wouldn't say it was perfect. They're gonna, if he can't throw the ball, then Kelsey's gonna be compromised.
Well, they were still able to get to Kelsey on the drive that Henny led them, but I mean, he was the difference as well. What do you have? 14 catches,
98 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think it was among the postseason record, especially for a tight end with 14 catches in a postseason game.
I mean, let's just be fair. The Jaguars are not a slouch like they were 7 years ago, where they were an embarrassment to the NFL every time they showed up. Like now they're a decent team. Trevor Lawrence looks like he can compete with any quarterback in the NFL for the most part. They have guys like ETN, which are really going to have a bright future ahead of them. I like Kirk. I liked Kirk originally when he was on Arizona. I'm surprised, and to be honest, I wish the Giants or the Jets would have gone after him. That would have been a great addition on the wide receiver cores in New York.
Yeah, I wouldn't have given him the kind of money though that Jacksonville gave
Oh
him.
no, the Jaguars way overpaid.
But it was an overpay that I think they needed to do. Now they've got some, like you said, they've got some pieces. They've got ETN, they've got him, they've got on defense, they got Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen. And remember next year, Nick, that Calvin Ridley, he's eligible to apply for reinstatement on February the 15th. And he has if he gets reinstated, that he can contribute to that offense too. And you still have Doug Peterson, who has also made a tremendous difference there in Jacksonville. And you've got a crappy division in the AFC South next year. I mean, who really is going to take the next step in that division? I mean, is Tennessee going to bounce back? I don't know. Houston, obviously, we know. And the Colts, we don't know what direction they're going in right now. So, yeah, definitely the future is bright there for Jacksonville for sure.
So we'll see what happens there. I mean,
and again, they played well enough to win. I mean, it was 2 mistakes that they made, but the problem is against the Chiefs and even against the hobbled Mahomes, you've got to play perfect.
You got to play perfect football, and the NFL playoffs are all about perfect football. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens. I mean, the Chiefs made it, but they're going to be hobbling going in to face Cincinnati. All right, now to the game that you probably had more interest in. The Eagles totally stomping all over the Giants, winning 38-7. And I swear to you, when I'm following this game, and I was typing in the chat, I wasn't even trying to be mean. All I was trying to say was I couldn't believe what the score was.
Well, so let's just be totally honest here. There's a reason why the Eagles are this good. I mean, this should not have really been. I mean, yeah, you would have thought the Giants would have put up a little bit more of a fight, but the Eagles. I mean, I think this to me really is more about the Eagles than it is about the Giants. I mean, Nick, I told you when it started. I'm saying this as a Giant fan. I'm just being totally fair when I say this. The Giants were probably the least talented team of the 14 teams in the postseason. But one of the things with them was they had one of the better systems and one of the better coaches of those teams, and that's why they were able to get through. Now, at the end of the day, the Eagles are just really, really good. And the biggest question going into this one was the status and the health of Jalen Hurts. Well, it was really more of the running back situation, and the Giants have always had a problem with stopping the run. So it was not really that great of a matchup. If I was able to do my picks on the shows, I would have taken Philadelphia to win and cover. And
well, yeah, we all did pretty much.
Well, I think Vegas was trying to trick you into taking the Giants with the 7.5 there, but there are certain traps that you can go with them sometimes. But yeah, it's really just more about the Eagles. They're just they're really good. I mean, there's a reason why they won the NFC East and were one of the top seeds in the NFC.
Right, and I don't know. The Giants just looked like 5 steps slower than the Eagles out there. It looked like they were just not prepared to play this game. I mean, the weird part is neither quarterback threw for 200 yards. That kind of threw me. That the Eagles scored 38 points and Jalen Hurts only put up 154 yards.
Well, that's all he needed to do, because when you have Miles Sanders and you have Boston Scott, who is Mr. Giant Killer, it seems like. I'm going to call him like the Pat Burrell of
yeah, because he was a Met killer, right?
Yeah,
him and Chipper Jones.
And Chipper Jones, yes, absolutely.
I mean,
the whole Philadelphia connection.
Well, let's not forget Chipper did call his son Shay.
That's right. I was just thinking about the Philadelphia connection with Burrell.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, look, still at the end of when you look at it, though, I mean, I've seen a lot of reaction on days following this, which is a lot of overreaction and stuff about the Giants. I mean, here's the bottom line. This was a team that was projected to win 5 or 6 games this year, and Brian Daboll took this team to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. So this season was a total, complete success. I don't want to call people out, but reactions that I've seen in the coming days have actually pissed me off more than the actual game itself on Saturday night. I would have came on the air and told you guys that this was the kind of game I kind of was expecting, because the and it's not about the Giants, it's about the Eagles. We saw this during the season. You know, that game at MetLife Stadium when Philadelphia put up 48 points against them. Philly's that good. They're like that for a reason. And I think they're going to give the 49ers a fit on Sunday. I think they got a chance. I mean, there's a reason why they're in this spot, folks.
I mean, I don't know. This was a tough game to watch from the Giants' perspective. They did exactly what I thought. They stacked the box. Saquon did not have a good game. I mean, he got 9 carries for 61 yards, but they were not going to win unless he put up 100 yards. That they need him to put up yards and force the Eagles defense to play, and they didn't do it.
Well, the thing is, though, the reason why he had only 9 carries was because they were in such a big hole that, you know, you can't be running the ball when you're down 3-4 scores early on. You got to be throwing it and getting down the field. And
they did exactly what I thought, because they were stacking the box on Saquon, forcing Daniel Jones to throw it, and that was a recipe for disaster.
Yep, and you know what? You credit Philly for that. They know what they're doing there.
So there's not much more to really say about it. I mean, it was a blowout. It was a clear blowout. There's not much you can really say fundamentally. I mean, I just look at the stat line for Daniel Jones: 50 for 27, 135 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. That's a recipe for disaster. Getting sacked 5 times, not good.
No, that would be the thing. But at the end of the day, you know what? The Giants had a very successful year. First under Brian Dable and Joe Shane, and now it becomes a very interesting time for them into the game. What to do with Daniel Jones? What to do with Saquon Barkley? The other thing too you have to watch out for the Giants here, and it's not really being talked about a lot, is the possibility that they could be losing one or both of their coordinators. You know, Mike Kafka, Wink Martindale, both being interviewed for head coaching jobs. I think that is a pretty big deal, because part of the defensive success this year was Wink Martindale's defensive coaching system, and that's why I love the Martindale move when they brought him in, and not just because his nickname is Wink Martindale, game show reference, folks. But one of the big reasons why I liked it was because his system was something the Giants don't do with the blitzing and stuff. So I think it's kind of a big deal. I saw a poll question on Tuesday: which coordinator would be worse if the Giants lost? To me, it's Martindale, no doubt. You know, I'll tell you what I would do if Mike Kafka, who I'm telling you, it looks like could be a possibility that he's going to be a head coach somewhere. I mean, he's going for a second round of interviews now. I'd call it Buffalo and try and get that offensive guy in here.
You're talking about Dorsey?
I think that's who it is.
Ken Dorsey? The one that went viral on Twitter because he smashed a clipboard or smashed an iPad or whatever in the booth?
Brian Dable. Hey, listen, Brian Dable's reaction sometimes is what this team needed.
Ironically, Dable was with Buffalo.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Bring the Buffalo connection here. You know, it worked. And I'll tell you what, Buffalo needs help. And I know we're going to get to that game in just a second. But one of the things I point to that helped this season was week 1 against the Tennessee Titans, when Daniel Jones throws that interception. He's trying to throw that fade pass to Saquon in the end zone. He gets picked. You saw Dable channel his inner Tom Coughlin and yell and turn as red as I am right now about at Daniel Jones about what you're doing. And since that moment, I felt like Jones became a better player. His team became better. Look, they took this team that was not the most talented team in the world, that had Isaiah Hodgins as their number 1 wide receiver for a good season, to the divisional round. So the big question marks for the Giants to go into this offseason: Daniel Jones, is he coming back? Saquon, is he coming back? You got to get a wide receiver in here, either through the draft or through trade. I don't think free agency is the way you go here for the Giants in the receiving core, unless you want to get DJ Chark from Detroit. There's no one wide receiver in free agency this year. A lot of the free agents are veteran, aging guys. I don't think the Giants really need that. I think they need some help at the linebacker spot. But, you know, defensive-wise, I mean, the defensive line is there. The offensive line, I think, for the most part, it's there. And they've do have so there's definitely some pieces that you have to work with, and the Giants are going to have $58 million in cap space going into this offseason, which I think is the third most of any team in the NFL. So
I'm telling you, you guys should go after Hopkins in a trade with the Cardinals.
I'm not as high on DeAndre Hopkins as
he would be a number one.
I know he wants out of Arizona. That there definitely is that. I'm not against it. I guess it would depend on what they would have to give up for him.
Can you imagine though if Daniel Jones actually had a number one type target with DeAndre Hopkins?
Absolutely, it would be nice. Now, what would the Giants, in your eyes, have to give up to get him?
It's going to cost you at least a first. I'll tell you that right now. I think it's going to cost like a first and like a fourth, or a first and a third.
Now they have not. I think they have.
But what do you do with the draft capital? Like you're not doing anything with it. I mean, you might as well trade and get a piece.
I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. I could definitely consider it.
I guarantee if you called Arizona now and you said, I'll give you a first and a third, they would probably give up.
Absolutely. I think that would, because Arizona's definitely going to be going in a different direction here for sure.
And they have their own headache right now with their own quarterback situation with the Kyler Murray constantly being hurt.
Yeah, and we don't even know if he's going to be ready for the start of the season.
He's not. They already said it.
Yeah, so I would imagine they're going to probably go with a stopgap guy there.
I could see Baker ending up there.
Well, that's what I said to you. I think Baker's definitely in play for Arizona for at least for 6 to 8 weeks or so, or until however long it takes for Murray to come back.
You know what the funny part is? Like Baker's going to have a career just based on being what they call a consistent backup.
Well, you need that in the NFL. Look at all the different quarterbacks that went down this year, and there was like 65 different QBs this season.
Oh my God, it was a crazy number.
I mean, when we did our Football Friday picks on Game On, and I was reading you some of those quarterback matchups. I mean, I had to make sure you weren't going to vomit when
I was so confused. I thought there were typos going on, but.
Yeah, look at kudos to the Giants on a successful season. And look, the Eagles were just clearly the better team. That's what it comes down to. There's nothing else that can be said.
I agree with you. All right. One more game on the divisional round recap, then we can get to some of the other stuff. Bengals upset the Bills. Yes, that's not a typo either. Yes, the Bengals were the better team. I think a lot of people were shocked. We all, for the most part, had the Bills in cover mode. I didn't expect the Bengals to win by 17 points. Joe Burrow is playing good football. That's all I can really say right now. And can you imagine if this is like San Fran, Cincinnati?
I do. I can see that. But see, this is why I wish I could make the shows last week. I would have taken the Bengals. I tell you what, they were being disrespected, and look at the way that Buffalo's been playing these last couple of weeks. And the thing that concerned me about Cincinnati going into this one was all their offensive line woes. They were down 3 guys going into this game. But Joe Burrow has pretty much been playing without an offensive line for the entire season, it seems like, at times.
And also, he was playing with an unhealthy Jamar Chase most of the season.
Right. Yeah, Jamar was hurt for a couple of weeks. And also, remember, from last year, his tight end from last year was gone. CJ Uzomah went to your Jets. I think I could still say that, right? Your Jets?
No, you can't.
I can't. All right. Well, we're going to try and convince him in the future. I'm going to try and give him some reason to be happy again. But the tight end Hurst stepped in this year, and he had a big role in this one too. And Josh Allen, whether it was because of the injury to the elbow or whatnot, just did not look like himself again in this one.
Right. There were a lot of issues. There's a lot of weird headlines after the game. Also, which I'm sure if you followed social media, that Stephon Diggs tried to basically run out like Speedy Gonzalez out of the locker room before the coaches got back there. And the ironic part, not ironic, but did you see that a rookie running back had to pull Stephon Diggs back into the locker room?
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell is that? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, no, it's I'll tell you what, the one thing I would take away from this is there's no question to me that the Bills are still the best team in the AFC East, but are they really actually further away from winning than closer being a champion, because now you look at these last few years now, and in the playoffs, you've had Allen being outplayed by Burrow this year,
Mahomes.
by Mahomes last year, and now you just wonder, are the Bills actually a little further than we thought they were from actually being a legit championship team? And I'll say this, I think they're a team you watch for maybe making a move for Saquon. They need a running back in the worst way, Buffalo. It's one thing we learned this year, and I could see them definitely making a push there for Saquon.
Well,
if the Giants don't franchise tag him.
That was the thing you just reminded me of. I forgot to say during the Giants game that apparently during the bye week, they supposedly offered Saquon $12 million a year, which he turned down.
Yeah.
Now, if that's the case, I don't think he's coming back in a Giant uniform. He's turning down $12 million a year.
And it was like, what was it? A multi-year contract?
It's multi-year, $12 million a year. If he's turning down $12 million a year from the Giants, I think you're done in that standpoint with him being back.
Well, I say this. I mean, if they don't franchise tag him, he's going to be gone. I could definitely see that being possible. And look, it would suck because I like Saquon, but at the same time, you know what? I can go out there and get a running back at the minimum, and he could play fine. And it's not a knock on Saquon, but last season during the dreadful Giants year, their best running back was a second or third stringer, and they couldn't even bring him back at $3 million this year. So that's really what it is.
I know who you're talking about too. I just can't remember his name.
Booker. Devontae Booker.
Yeah.
Couldn't even bring him back for $3 million because they had no salary cap.
That just tells you how bad.
And you know what? Breida and Bridewell actually played all right for them too. So I mean, they have options now. That's just not knocking Saquon if they don't bring him back. But you could see a team like Buffalo maybe making a push there for a running back. So it could be him, could be somebody. It could be. I'm trying to think who else is a free agent running back this year. But yeah, it's something to watch with Buffalo. And you know what, Cincinnati. You know what, like your co-host Tom says, don't disrespect the Bengals. And I'll tell you what, I felt like going into this matchup, they were being very disrespected, and they showed why that they are in this spot. And I know that the Bills have been through a lot, but remember, Cincinnati was kind of ticked off that they had to go on the road and all this, and they have not slowed down at all. They've been absolutely remarkable. And I thought that even in that game that got canceled, I felt like they were on their way to winning that game too. So they really are making a legit case here to be back in the Super Bowl.
I mean, the way I look at the Bills had a lot of pressure on them to win because every NFL analyst said, oh my God, they're the overall favorite to win the Super Bowl. Josh Allen has no proven track record past the championship game. I mean, so I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a tough one to back, but just I look at the numbers, I'm not surprised. Stephon Diggs, let's see, his numbers were 4 receptions for 35 yards, no touchdowns. That's not going to get it done. Sorry, that's not going to get it done whatsoever. If Stephon Diggs is not leading the way, then you're in trouble. I mean, just look at some of the others. Jamar Chase had a touchdown. Hayden Hurst had a touchdown. Joe Mixon had a touchdown. It was overall a good offensive day for Cincy. And the defense for Cincinnati looked really good, too. I think they're starting to come into their ways. They're going to be a dangerous opponent against the Chiefs.
I think the Chiefs are going to have a tough time against them. I know we're going to get to them in just a moment. But, you know, Cincinnati went from 0-2 to start the year. Banged up a Joe Burrow that was very rusty at the start of the year because of the appendectomy that he had. And now he's some superb football, especially these last couple of weeks. And I think they're definitely on the way to being back in the Super Bowl for a second straight year, Nick.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, the Bengals are a good team. I think Joe Burrow really does. I should say deserve, but it would be a great story if they won the Super Bowl. It would be a great story if the Niners or the Bengals won the Super Bowl.
I think that would be an awesome matchup full of storylines for sure.
I mean, Burrow versus Purdy. I mean, the offensive weapons, McCaffrey and Mixon. I mean, that would be a heck of a matchup in the Super Bowl. But before we get there, let's preview the championship game. So I went and I found the lines to the most recent ability. So the NFC Championship preview, 49ers at the Eagles. The Eagles are a 2.5-point favorite. This is in Philadelphia. And I don't have the where the TV network or where they're going to be.
So NFC's on Fox.
All right, so that's going to be a Fox game. So it's probably going to be. I mean, there's only 2 games left.
So obviously Fox has the NFC game, and CBS will have the AFC.
Are they both going to be primetime games? I'm assuming.
So this one, the 49ers and Eagles, at 5 p.m. Eastern kick there in Philadelphia.
Yuck.
Good for us early, folks.
5 p.m. Ugh.
No, 3:05.
Oh, 3:05. I think you said 5
a.m. It's just like last Sunday, 3:05 and 6:30.
Oh, that's even weird.
It's a noon o'clock game on the West Coast for San Fran, but they got to come across the country to play Philadelphia.
Oh, that's going to be so weird. This is a very close game. Like this pick'em line is actually pretty accurate here, I think, right?
Yeah, I don't think I would be someone goes above where it is. I know the other games fluctuated a bit, but yeah, I don't think this line gets above this, Nick. I mean, unless you see it, unless there's an injury that develops, but oof, boy.
I'd be worried about Jalen Hurts a little bit though, just health wise.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have to do much against the Niners, but now against the Giants, but now going up against this Niner defense. But now, as far as San Fran goes, Brock Purdy, we keep talking about him, but here's another big test for him. Now he goes on the road, cross country, against Philadelphia. Oh, what would be the play? You have the line? You have the lines there, right?
Well, yeah, they're right here.
Right. I'm curious what the over-under is, because I don't think this is going to be a high-scoring game.
See if I can pull them up quick. Oh, here they are. So the over-under right now is 46.
Okay, so that would be like something like in the low 20s. That'd be about what I'm thinking about, something like 23-20 or so.
Like
49er defense is stifling right
24,
now.
24-21. I mean, like...
Yeah, I mean, that would take you slightly over.
No, actually, that would be under, right? Yeah, 24-21 would be under.
That would still be under. You're right, 45.
But I could see the game being like that.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah. I just wanted this 49er. There's 2 factors here, 49er defense and Brock Purdy going on the road in this spot. He's been favorable at home, now going on the road cross country.
I don't know. I kind of like the 49ers because they seem to play well regardless of...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Jalen Hurts did not have to do much. I mean, he only...
Yeah, but I think he's going to have to do more.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think he can get by with that again.
I don't know.
Agree. I mean, I think it's going to be San Fran.
So do I. That as soon as I saw this line, I said, I said anything below a touchdown, I'm willing to lean on the Niners. So I'm taking Niners plus 2.5. I think they win the game.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I agree with you.
Unless Jalen Hurts is going to come out and really be Jalen Hurts and throw for 300 yards and get A.J. Brown going and getting Boston Scott and then the football and they're being aggressive, I just don't see it happening.
Boston Scott won't do because it's not the Giants. And the question, and the other thing is, the quarterbacks are really the wild card in all this because again, Brock Purdy has not done this on the road, and Jalen Hurts against this Niner defense.
I think this is the most aggressive defense they've had to face yet.
That's I think the difference in this one. That's why I'm going to take San Fran. And as long as Brock Purdy doesn't turn the ball over, and he's got 2 to 3 running backs that he doesn't have to be throwing 30 times. I
mean, you could lean on McCaffrey for 15, 20 carries, to be honest. You really could. And then you could just get the ball to guys like Juszczyk and Kittle and so on. And to be honest, they really could put up 30 points. They really could if they...
Wow. Okay.
I think they could. I really do. Because who knows? The Eagles are still banged up with injuries. Now, I know Lane Johnson came back, but who knows if he's 100% healthy.
Oh, he's not. I heard the report from Glazer before the game Saturday night, and it's amazing what he's playing through.
So, and I think that's a factor. So we'll see what happens. So we both have plus 2.5 on the Niners. AFC Championship game preview. Bengals are a minus 1.5 favorite at the Chiefs.
So this game I'm actually a little bit more confident in, and this line I think is already fluctuated. I think when Tom and Hank did this on Monday night, I think the Chiefs were actually the 1.5 point favorites. But I don't know why I feel very confident with this one. I am taking Cincinnati minus the 1.5. I would have taken them if Mahomes was healthy. The fact that he's not healthy and he's playing with that, I think limits he's seeing what they could do. And also, Joe Burrow and the Bengals are just playing with some unbelievable confidence right now. And remember, Burrow is lifetime against Kansas City. And there's a reason behind that. And I think the Bengals are not going to be disrespected in this point. This is they should be favored. They are the better team in the spot, and I am riding with them to the Super Bowl.
I mean, you have to factor in partially that Mahomes has played through injuries before and has had some decent games through injuries. You still have guys like Kelsey, but I said it before. Kelsey is compromised if Mahomes can't throw the football. And then that affects the running game because then they can't spread the football out. Their running back situation is a little bit questionable at best. The Bengals' offenses look really good the past 4 to 5 weeks. Jamar Chase is finally back healthy. Mixon looks really good running the football. And then, of course, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has had a really great season. Really good season. Like, he almost has to be considered for MVP. He really does. I mean, like I said, it'd be a great story if Burrow and the Bengals won after all the hardship they went through the season, or if the Niners win and you have Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the draft, leading them to a Super Bowl. I mean, the heck of the storylines that would come out of that Super Bowl if that's the way it goes. I'm with you. I'm riding the Bengals minus 1.5 because I think Mahomes is going to be compensating through an injury, which is not good, and that might get him hurt more. So you and I are pretty much on the same front for Niners Bengals Super Bowl.
And you know what? Casey's defense, which I've always had issues with this season, I just wonder how they're going to be able to handle T. Higgins and Jamar Chase.
They're not. The Chiefs' defense is probably one of the worst defenses left in the playoffs.
I think about, again, if Christian Kirk makes that catch, almost talking about a different game.
We are talking about a different game.
Yeah. It's like a 10-point swing there. So I think since he wins this one, I think it's going to be a higher scoring game. I mean, this one definitely I think will be the more offensive of the two games. But yeah, give me Cincinnati by, let's say, 3 to 7 points at least.
Yeah, I could see that too. Yeah.
Kansas City.
I could see that too. I think they cover. I don't think this line is big enough, to be honest.
Well, I don't think it will jump up. Again, it opened up as a 1.5 favorite on Monday night when Tom and Hank did game on. And I think the Mahomes injury is kind of what's limiting it. I don't think this line jumps up. I mean, unless you tell me that Mahomes is going to be ruled out by the end of the week, then maybe since he jumps up to like a 3 to 3.5 point difference. But these two games are so evenly matched in some ways that it's not going to be a big line for either team in either game.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Also, other news that was kind of going around, which didn't come out until like after some rumor going around that the Ravens offered $133 million to Lamar Jackson. Now, I don't know if this was. I'm assuming this was probably the guaranteed money. I don't know. I don't know. I think the Ravens are in trouble.
Well, see, here's the thing with this. It's interesting. So I know that Lamar's been talking about guaranteed money, but let's say that he doesn't take this deal. What team would be willing to go that way with Lamar?
I said this last week. Lamar has no leverage. He's been injured the last 2 seasons.
That's exactly right. He hasn't played. I mean, he's missed what? Like he missed 6 games last season. He missed the last 3 this year and the playoffs.
And he hasn't been 100% healthy all this season.
Yeah, so I mean, his value he doesn't have that much value. And also, I think he's a product of the Ravens, meaning that if he went somewhere else, I don't know what kind of production he has with other teams. I was originally high on saying the Dolphins, but I don't think that's in play for him either right now.
And first of all, the Dolphins are already getting a first-hand look into what injuries look like. So do they really want to deal with that again?
No. And I'll tell you what, Skylar Thompson did actually play all right against the Bills.
He played a lot better than we all thought. Let's put it that way.
So,
now, ironically, the only team that I thought would have made sense is the Niners with Lamar.
Yeah.
Because that's an open offense.
That's not bad, but they're set. They've got 3 options out there right now.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, that's the only open offense I could think of with like a quarterback that wants to use their legs. But
they're trying to trade the guy, and they're trying to get rid of the guy who's making a lot of money right now. So, yeah, I think Lamar's. My gut right now would tell me that he's staying in Baltimore, and they will work things out.
I don't know. I think he's going to end up getting franchised. That's just my gut. And then what's going to happen? I said this last week. He's going to end up holding out.
Possibly.
And if he holds out, that's on him, not the team.
Look, I'm confident about a lot of guys moving. I don't see Lamar being one of those guys moving.
Yeah, I don't know. Also, just a few more headlines. I forgot to mention this in MLB before, but there was a big trade that kind of went down between the Marlins and the Twins. The Twins traded Luis Arraez to the Marlins for Pablo Lopez, which was a rumored name that could have ended up here in New York, which didn't happen.
Yeah, we were remember doing a trade deadline special last year, and there was some speculation. I think when you look at this deal, Nick, I think the reason why is I don't think the Yanks were willing to trade. You would have been talking about the Yanks having to give up at least Gleyber Torres
that's who they wanted. I think that's who they wanted. That was it.
Yeah, I think it was Gleyber, but they also traded the Twins also traded an outfield prospect to Lopez as well, right? So you would have told me that the Yanks would have traded Jason Dominguez. There's no chance in the world of that.
No, not that. But I think they basically said, like, we'll take Gleyber if you want Pablo Lopez. I was like, well, hello.
I think there was more to that, and also there was not really a lot of time when they were really closing.
Oh, it was right near the clock, right near the deadline.
Yeah.
But I was surprised that the Twins traded a batting champion for a pitcher because you know how they are with their hitting prospects.
Controllable pitcher. That's the key word, Nick. Controllable. That's the Yanks have been living by that with a couple of their guys too. Control.
Well, they got the guy from Chicago, the side armor, who's going to be hurt.
Season, unfortunately, but
he's got control through 2028 or something.
It's like four more years or so. Yeah,
it's like a crazy amount of control. But I don't know. My opinion on this, and I've had this opinion on the Marlins forever. I could really care less who they trade for who, because we already know that as soon as they bring a player in, they're going to be gone in 3 years anyway. So, does it really matter who the Marlins trade for?
Well, they've got now Kim Eng as GM. Maybe they're finally going to go in an interesting direction, but yeah, it's I don't know, because you look at that NL East and you still got the Mets, you still got the Phillies, you still got the Braves in there.
But look at the ownership as a whole. First of all, I'm a big Kim Eng fan just from the days when she was with the Yankees. Mm-hmm. But that ownership group is a nightmare. Like, it's a bloodbath nightmare. I mean, Jeter freaking bought out his own shares with the ownership group because he knew that it was a disaster waiting to happen. I don't blame him, by the way, because now I heard like he wants to be part of the Yankee stuff, and like there might be some booth opportunities down the road, or maybe doing some work behind the scenes with the Yankees, which is I'm all for, by the way. But
there is an opening in the broadcast booth now.
Well,
with Cameron Maben now going national, so.
Well, he was always doing. He works for Marquee doing Chicago Cub games, and then he was doing MLB Network stuff. By the way, big mistake, I think, letting him go. I thought he was really funny on the Yankee broadcast.
Was great, yeah.
But I don't think Jeter wants to be in a booth. Same thing as Peyton Manning. Like, he doesn't want to be on a travel schedule when they already did that for 10, 15, 20 years. They don't want to deal with that anymore.
Right. No, I totally. But that not often you trade a batting champion
for a Cy Young Award winner. pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, Lopez had a good year last year. I know it was only 500, but his ERA was good. His strikeout total was good.
Well, actually, his own teammate won the Cy Young, right? Alcantara?
Sandy Alcantara. Yep.
See, I'm telling you what's going to happen. They're going to have great pitching for 3-4 years, and then, we can't pay these guys. There you go.
Alcantara's going to get traded next offseason then, right?
Right.
For two controllable players, yes.
So what's the point? The Marlins are not competing. They're pretty much just it's like a bad hamster wheel. Like the hamster's just got to keep running in circles, knowing it can't go anywhere.
Well, then you got to have good young players, because you know what, the Rays do more with less than any other team in baseball, and look where they are. Look where they've been. Well,
unfortunately, they're dealing with who's the guy they signed out of arbitration years? Willie or which one? Who was the player they signed out of arbitration years? They gave him like a 13-year deal.
Oh, the shortstop, Wander Franco.
Because they're kind of paying for that one now.
Well, yeah, he was hurt last year.
And that would worry me a little bit now that you signed him out of arbitration years and he got hurt year one of a long deal.
Look what the Braves are doing with a lot of their guys.
But you know what, though? The Braves did it right. Like, they didn't go too long. They didn't go too short. They signed a lot of guys to 4 or 5 year deals. Yeah. That's how you do it. That's how you keep them together. And then when they're free agents again, you sign them again. I mean, so the Braves are doing it all right. So, I don't know. We'll see how this trade plays out. I don't see it. I mean, the Twins will make out more on this trade than the Marlins will. All right, one last story. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but WNBA news. So the WNBA Players Union is investigating the Las Vegas Aces after I'm going to totally botch this name. Dearica Hamby makes claims of mistreatment about pregnancy before being traded to the LA Sparks. Now, I was telling you before the show that I've heard this in soccer. With female soccer players, where they go through pregnancy and they practice and they practice and they practice, and then once they get around the situation, they're too pregnant at that point, the point where they get the kid, they can't play anymore. You could add this to the list of horrible situations that go down in the WNBA or the NBA, because technically the NBA has ownership in the WNBA. Do you know anything about this? Because I'm trying to do a little research myself.
So, Hamby was traded from the Aces last week. Alleged her former organization treated her in a quote unprofessional and unethical way that has been traumatizing, like you said, because of her pregnancy. But I'm just trying to see here because
I'm reading like the ESPN story. I mean, alleged her former organization treated her in an unprofessional, unethical way that has been traumatizing due to her pregnancy. It also says being traded as part of the business. Hamby said in a statement posted on Instagram, quote, being lied to, bullied, manipulated, and discriminated against is not.
So here's where I wanted to look at. As per CBA enacted in 2020, WNBA players receive their full salary while on maternity leave, as well as child care stipend. There is a maternity cap exception that allows teams to sign a replacement player at her applicable minimum if they don't have cap room. So I guess the first part, WNBA players receive their full salary while on maternity leave, as well as the child care stipend. So I'm guessing that she didn't get that.
Well, here's the weird part too. So apparently, before the trade, I guess back in June, she had signed a 2-year contract extension with the Aces, and then she was traded. But we've seen that many times in sports.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like it's just part of the business of being an athlete. She's a 2-time sixth player of the year.
But the weird part is, hours after the trade was announced, she made the allegations.
Well, see. That always raises an eyebrow.
Hamby also announced during the Aces victory parade that she was expecting her second child, said in a statement she planned to play the 2023 season and had expressed that to the Aces. Though she was working out with the team staff during her pregnancy, she said she was told she was, quote, not taking my workouts seriously. and the Aces personnel told her they didn't see that she'd be ready to return. So it's and I hate to say this, but it's kind of a he said, she said situation partially.
Yeah. Or in this case, it's she said. Yeah.
Excuse me, right. She said, she
That's
said.
right. You're
But,
good.
she also goes on to say, I had my character and work ethic attacked. I was promised things to entice me to sign my contract extension that were not followed through on. I was accused of signing my extension knowingly pregnant. This is false. I was told that I was a question mark and that it was said that I would, that it was said that I said I would, quote, get pregnant again. And there was a concern for my level of commitment to the team. I was told that I didn't hold up my end of the bargain because, quote, no one expected me to be pregnant in the next 2 years. All right. There's a lot to unfold here. One, you're allowed to do whatever you want. You want to have a kid, you want to become pregnant, that's your choice.
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't want to have a political discussion because that's really where this is the road that it's heading down of women have their own bodies and they make their choices. Like, I don't want to have that discussion because that's part of what this dumb discussion is about. I mean, athletes are allowed to do what they want to do on their own time. Okay? Like, as an organization, if someone gets pregnant, I mean, this is kind of an unforeseen thing because on the female side, they can get pregnant. Men, obviously, they don't get pregnant, but their wives, but they go on paternity leave when their wives get pregnant.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different on the women's for the woman because she's actually having the pregnancy.
She's the one who has having a child. Exactly.
So if the organization did what she's alleging, then shame on them as an organization.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if it's true, then the organization's got to get some sort of punishment, you would think.
I mean, she's saying that she was promised things. That's more of a she said situation because you could literally go back in the contract language and read that.
Well, so the contract would, I mean, there has to be some language in the contract. Otherwise, your favorite commissioner is going to have to open up an investigation into this.
Well, technically, Kathy Engelbert, the WNBA commissioner, would have to. Oh, well, is that who you were talking about, or
yes,
no?
your favorite commissioner. Yes.
Oh, I swear, if I could sit down with Kathy Engelbert and have a conversation with her, there were so many questions I would ask her.
Crazy thing is, though, she's overseeing a league right now that's actually expanding and stuff. They're adding more game. I don't know why I know this, but
well, their TV contracts are expanding. I've talked about it before.
They're adding more games. I think they're up to like 40 now. They're actually playing a preseason game up in. I saw they're playing a preseason game up in Canada, which has never happened before.
They're kind of following the NBA model because technically they have partial ownership in the WNBA, so it makes sense because they want to get more international reach.
And they're also going to have two big storylines coming up because they've got Brianna Stewart, who's meeting with 4 teams, and her story is because the meetings that with the 4 teams she's meeting is going to take place in Istanbul, Turkey, where she's playing for that, and Stewart's playing for the club there. And the free agency is coming at a critical moment for the WNBA, which has been debating issues around player compensation, charter, air travel, and overseas commitment for years.
Oh, I remember when we did the original story with pay issues, and then you just had the Brittany Griner situation.
Yeah, we don't know what the latest with. I mean, we don't know Brittany Griner. If
she already came out and said her plans are to play next season in the WNBA,
and that would be something too. So that would be another. I mean, WNBA is going to get a lot of publicity this upcoming season for a myriad of reasons,
especially for that storyline alone. Just a few more. Just kind of reading. To be treated this way by an organization by women who are mothers who claim to be in these shoes, who preach family chemistry and women's empowerment, and disappointing and leaves me sick to my stomach. Hamby continued in her social media post, we fought for provisions that would finally support and protect player parents. This cannot now be used against me. Well, if that's being used against her, then the Players Association needs to step in.
Yeah, and there might be some movement here in the coming weeks and stuff because this is obviously a big deal. An unusual deal, but because this is a female sport, I mean, it's a little bit different than, say, somebody going out on paternity leave. When it's actually, the your actual athlete is having the baby.
Right. It says the WNBPA released a statement after Hamby's post without specifying who it was about, saying, "quote, a member of our union has raised serious concerns regarding the conduct of members of the Las Vegas Aces management. We will review this matter and will seek a comprehensive investigation to ensure that her rights under the collectively bargained provisions of the 2020 CBA, as well as her rights and protections under state and federal law, have not been violated."
Yeah. And that's what it's sounding like. There's got to be some sort of violation here.
The Aces did not respond to a request for comment. The WNBA said it did not have a comment. Gee, shocker. But the WNBA Players Union said it will call for an investigation. Yeah, this is not good. This could get ugly. Now, again, you got to be very careful with athlete. It doesn't matter whether it's female, male. You got to be very careful with these situations when it comes to pregnancy and family private matters.
And that family should always come first, no matter what.
But if the Las Vegas Aces allegedly committed I guess they call it an ethics violation in the franchise, then they need to go after the Las Vegas Aces and do something.
Yeah, well, that'd be your question now. What could a punish? Probably just doctored pay, maybe a draft pick. Even though they have only 2 rounds in the WNBA, it's not really much. So there's got to be some I don't know what else they could possibly stipulate them with.
Money, because the WNBA doesn't have as much money.
They're right. They're kind of they're not. I wouldn't say they're cash strapped, but they don't obviously the NBA and stuff because they just don't generate as much revenue.
Now, the only difference is I don't know if the Las Vegas Aces, some of the teams are owned by NBA owners. I don't know who owns the Las Vegas Aces. I mean, I can look it up quickly and see who owns them.
There's no as of right now, there's no NBA team in Vegas. And I say
wow, that's interesting. The Aces are owned by Mark Davis.
Well, I was going to say, yeah.
I forgot about that. He
Raiders,
did.
Yeah.
Oh God.
That's right. He purchased them in 2021, so just over 2 years ago. Literally,
which means he has the money.
He's got them. Yeah.
So he's not going to care.
I was saying they don't have the money just yet because what was I saying? NBA team doesn't have a team in Vegas just yet because it'll be inevitable they'll get one.
But I thought maybe they would have an owner that didn't have as much money, but there goes that, because if they find him, fine, I'll just pay the fine, whatever.
It sounds like there's going to have to be an investigation opened up. I mean, this is obviously than we would see in any of the other sports, but I mean, if it's literally like in the contract, then
they need to do something.
There's got to be something. I mean, this is one of your own players too.
I mean, we're talking about a pregnancy issue. If someone got traded because they were not being treated properly because of pregnancy, that's just not a good. And I don't see any news attention for this. Like, I saw an ESPN story, kind of got buried. Like, if this was and I hate to say this, but if this was a controversy with a male athlete, you would see it everywhere.
Probably.
With this, you don't see it everywhere. And it's unfortunate. The WNBA has become a much better league than it has over the 7, 8, 9 years ago when people didn't care about it, when it got no attention.
Yeah, I mean, ESPN's they got a lot of their games, so.
I mean, do you know who is the premier voice of the WNBA?
Ryan Ruocco.
I mean, that's a big name.
Absolutely,
that's a big name to call games, and I know ESPN actually is one of the few that actually hired a bunch of former WNBA coaches and players, and
Rebecca Lobo,
who I happen to like. I think she's very good at her job.
Yeah,
they've had her on some NBA games too. Like, Like she's really good, and
Their
also
lead sideline reporter too. But then
and
again, Holly
who's
Rowe-
and who is the? Oh my God, she has a sister in the league too. The L.A. Sparks player who works at ESPN. I can't remember her name all of a sudden. But she's really good also. I can't remember her name. What?
I actually get into a little bit. They do have.
Oh, Shanae Agumake.
Oh, yeah, that's it. I couldn't pronounce her name. I knew who it was,
But she's really good also.
absolutely, yeah.
And they've had her doing NBA stuff also. So
Yeah, she's usually on the NBA Today or on the NBA stuff on ESPN at prime time. Yep.
You know what? ESPN was criticized 5 to 7 years ago. They didn't have enough women like analysts. I
think it's crazy now. I mean, geez. I think Doris Burke's like one of the best in the forget just female. I think she's one of the best in the business.
Right.
Damn shame she can't do the NBA finals on TV, but I know she does it on the radio. But I mean,
well, because they're overstocked. That's the NBA is really where ESPN is at. What was I going to say? Like some of the
Andrews, her sister Kendra. I mean,
they've been really good.
Yeah.
I was trying to think. Oh, and not even just NBA, but Mina Kimes doing NFL.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, we could go up and down. I mean, I can give you 30 sideline reporters.
Oh my God,
football! But I mean, unless you want me to do another hour, I mean.
Well, no.
Bye, everybody. There goes the rest of our crowd there.
But Holly Rowe.
Yeah, Holly Rowe does everything. I mean.
And then, well, obviously before they left, like the Maria Taylors and the Rachel Nichols of the world when they were still there.
It shows you how deep ESPN actually is that people don't realize. They actually are. They got a very good group over there.
But all right, I think 2.5 hours is enough. This is a pretty long show.
That's a record?
I don't know.
I think I was here for the other one.
Well, Tom said they did like 240, I think, maybe with MMA Outsiders, which I couldn't believe.
Oh, an ETB network general record. Okay.
But yeah. So I don't know. It's crazy. I forgot to tell you also that Zan, who does MMA Outsiders with Tom, is actually going to be at Radio Row for the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's going to be fantastic.
They're not seeing the game, but they're getting to go to Radio Row. I've always wanted to go to Radio Row.
And you know what? It's back now from COVID restrictions, so that'll be very, very cool in Arizona, which is a cool place. It won't be 100 degrees there, so I mean that'll be awesome.
That'll be great.
Yeah.
Oh God. Well, I think we had enough for one show. This is crazy. 2 hours and 30 minutes. Even though it felt like it went fast. Make sure you follow the show on social media at ETB Sports, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Follow the ETB Network, Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Also, I had a banner made just because I knew you guys. Oh, I knew you were going to be here. Make sure you follow Game On with Johnny Montalbano and Hank and Dichter Tuesday at 7 p.m. Even though we kind of got twisted this week.
Well, hopefully, yes, I'll be hopefully there next week. Let's just say that. Best thing to do is like our YouTube channel. If you're new, leave a like. If you're new, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you know all of our programming when it comes out. And yes, hopefully I will be back there next week.
Sometimes life just doesn't always align.
No, I mean everything's good. Don't get me wrong. I mean there's just
scheduling.
Yes, sometimes reality does get in the way, unfortunately.
Also, make sure you check out our website, etbpodcast.com. A lot of blogs going up there. All our podcasts are up there. Updates go up there as well. God, I don't remember the last time we've had to promote this much stuff on shows. But now that we have a website and now that we have a network, this is crazy. But yeah, I think that pretty much does it. Anything else you want to say, Johnny, before we go?
Well, it's good to get back in the groove, Nick, and it was good to be on with you tonight.
A lot of fun. Wow, we're going to be on 170 next week. Holy cow.
Comes quick.
Actually, will that be? Oh, no, one more this month. And then my birthday's coming up soon. Oi, I'm going to be 30. Yikes.
Oh, age is just a number.
Yeah, you're right. All right, for Johnny Montalbano, I'm Nick Morgasen. Tom Albano will be back next week for episode 170, and we will see you again next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.